Hi.
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 What number of podcasts are we on? What is the episode? Fifth, I think.
Fifth.
Yes.
Hashtag 5. नहीं hashtag नहीं
Hashtag
बोल
5. Yeah, we've done past you know 5 episodes, and now we have a new thing to introduce, which are guests. And one more thing adds one more startup guy into the list. So this time I think the title will be Three Startup
Three
Guys Talk.
startup guys.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. I think we made a great trend about this. It's like now it's a staple. Get two startup guys talk about. So now that's become a keyword. I think I was uh, searching for the
Uh,
keywords. However videos are getting recommended. So it's like startup
True
guys
startup
too.
guys.
So yeah,
Done.
it's
So
really
so
good.
so this is out of the algorithm.
Yeah. That's so yeah. Tell me, Jonah, you're the new entrant in the talks that we like the chill sessions that we do. What do you think? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, dude.
Yeah, just because of
Um,
the rain that's happening. Like,
it's raining over here. I have no clue,
yeah.
dude. Dude, I don't keep my
When
windows open.
when was the last time you saw sunshine?
Dude, that's a hard thing because my schedule has been screwed up for the past few days. And
Ask about that. This person used to be
yesterday, for the
accountable.
first time, I fixed it.
Why? Why is that? Is there any specific reason? Because it doesn't happen intentionally.
No, it was like, so for me, most of the time, my sleep schedule gets screwed up. Is There's some project I really want to do, but I just can't postpone it to the next day. And night is like such a peaceful time where you can just do your project. Nobody's there to disturb you.
Mm.
It's calm. And the thing is, at night after you hit a threshold like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., you're just super energetic, super creative, and like you'll just finish your project in like a straight 8 hour stretch. So yeah. So yesterday, thankfully, I had like no creative endeavors to pursue. So I slept.
I
So
think
now it's sorted. Your sleep schedule is back.
Hopefully, dude, I'm drinking coffee now, so you don't know what night holds.
What are you drinking, Vivan?
I'm drinking something of a very healthy combination this time. It's like lime, lemon, and I don't know what it's called. हिंदी में क्या कहते हैं? Like it's a family of oranges.
Mm.
Mossambi, something like that.
Acha.
So,
And I'm having classic thumbs up.
okay. Thumbs Up is a Coca-Cola company, right?
It is Coca-Cola. It was started by Parle, and it was like referred to as the Indian taste. इसका एक काफी different सा taste होता है. तो उसके बाद we उसी time पे था जब Campa Cola was at its peak.
There's this new buzz around Campa Cola, right? Like it's
Yeah,
it's
It's
making a
coming back.
it's
it's
making a
coming
comeback.
back with the money. Yeah, we did a story on that. I read it. तो इसलिए मेरे को पता है कि thumbs up was also, but
So the
thumbs up
next
was a steal. We wrote about a steal today. Figma was stolen by Adobe. लेकिन
yeah.
thumbs up was actually a steal because thumbs up had a very unique taste. Coke didn't. मतलब Coke, Pepsi was very similar. Then Campa was very similar. Obviously, Campa was exact copy of Coke, but thumbs up was actually very unique. And इन्होंने ले लिया. They crushed it very nicely. It's a very good story. Who's up for a story? Maybe Vivan can cover it.
I think yeah, it needs the breakdown, don't you think? A brutal one.
Yeah,
But
you guys make. I'll
nevertheless,
read.
I think
Avid
it's like
reader, constant retweeter, full
yeah,
supporter.
that is how even we classify each other. Like if he is a creator, then I'm the converter. If I'm the creator, then he's a converter. And now we have another addition to the list.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Like
let's see.
before we start properly, I just want to tell you, Jonah, this is a very chill podcast, and we just relax here. And but we do have some things to discuss with you because you're into design, you're into startups, and we'll only stick to those parts. And other than that, if you can just talk about what do you do exactly. Of course, everybody knows that you run volume, and वॉल्यूम करता क्या है, वॉल्यूम क्या है, कुछ लोगों को ये नहीं पता होगा, कुछ लोग
Volume is one of the most appreciated and referred app in my team. So
यस
cheers to that.
Bomb. FinFlow's marketing strategy is very well known in our team.
वॉल्यूम.
It goes both ways.
When you if you ever launch this reel function on Volume ever, we'll be the
Mhm.
There
first
has
ones
to
to
be a
post.
collaboration.
There will be a person with this face this side.
Last week only my CTO suggested, but the thing is, you just can't see a good idea and say yes to it on the spot.
And it's
He's into
saturated. It's saturated.
Yep.
what is?
Short form video.
It is saturated, but I feel there are still rooms for so many niches to come out. Like how travel became a niche, and there's a separate app for just travel reels, right? So I think short video still has, for example,
which is the app for travel reels?
I think Trello, if I'm not wrong. I think it came, not Trello, Trell. Yeah, it's called Trell, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean
So
Trello is a team app, right? Management team app.
yeah. My bad. I think it's Trell. I'm not exactly sure what the name was. Then I think
Okay.
another one came for purely fashion. Again, I don't name, Indian company only. Fashion one had a very good way of monetizing. It was again this entire concept of reels, but you could plug in products where you're showing fashion. So it went through a full affiliate system is how they monetize. So I feel there's still a scope for educational reels to still exist, because there's no, think of a platform where you'll go for educational reels. Not much. Instagram is still your best bet. There's not one curated platform to go for something like this. Instagram
Right.
also, you reach something that's educational is the luck factor of the algorithm.
It's pure luck. It's pure luck. I've seen that we've created much better reels than the one that went like crazy, and it's almost close to 1 million now. And I was like, this is luck, because it has to hit. So I was checking from another account, a lot of TikTok accounts and a lot of accounts with 10 million plus followers like that reel. So because of that super
Mhm.
like system, and how do you reach them again and again is the problem. And one thing I really like about Volume is uh, the post keeps coming up again and again. So
Mhm.
I sometimes I read, sometimes like I don't use the app too often because I'm not a very screen reader. I'm that Kindle and book reader. But whenever I open the app, sometimes my favorite ones come back up. So one of
Mhm.
it is your um, uh, blitzscaling wala book summary that keeps coming up. I really like that. So I read it again sometimes. So but first for the audience, can you tell us about yourself?
Awesome. So again, like you guys know, my name is Jonah, and what I'm exactly trying to do with my startup's name is Volume, and we are trying to change how people actually perceive reading on mobile phones. So we have created a new kind of format. Our first goal was to, reimagine the entire magazine space. Now, so now we have niched down from magazines to publications, which are more purpose-driven magazines, because magazines fundamentally have this nature of being, uh, it could be entertainment magazines, it could be about stories, it could be about infotainment. So when we niche down to publications, we are focusing on things like entrepreneurship, educational content, all of them given in a very bite-sized format. And the most important part of how Volume works is it's very visual in nature, uh, compared to any other reading platform. So if you look at any other platform that exists, let's say Medium, it's predominantly black and white content, which is not an issue. But the problem is, if you look at the adoption of people who consume reading based content, it's still on the millennial and above side. When it comes to Gen Z, the penetration of reading is still comparatively lower. So, and again, this is an entire generation who has, read content or is a digital first native generation, right? So our focus is, how do we create readable content that's actually entertaining for Gen Z? So that's our entire focus. So all the other parameters, like let's say bite-sized content, it's not because we wanted to focus on bite-size, but that's something that actually works with the newer audience base, because that's something what they're used to. The slidable type of content, the fact that there's anticipation after every slide. Now we are going on to a realm where we are making content more interactive. So content generally is, a very one-way interaction. You just read it. It's read only. But we want to go one step ahead and make it more interactive, where you're not just reading content, but you're actually interacting with the content and probably giving data and insights back to the writer who has made the content.
I
So
get so much feedback on my stack, and I keep replying to them.
Yep.
again and again.
I see. I noticed. Yeah. Hey, you get my like also on this.
Yes.
But yeah. So fundamentally, what we're trying to do is we are trying to change or make reading in a simple way. We are trying to make reading more fun for the upcoming generation. Something what they're very used to. We want to bring that into the reading space.
I think for me, volume has become like a go-to playground. Just because I'm a avid consumer of a lot of stuff. Like I consume newsletters like hell. I consume YouTube videos like hell. So there's a portion on my calendar which says basically like it's like narcotics block on my calendar, which goes like I need to consume a lot of stuff. So, like snorting a lot of information in, right? And volume has become one of those stoppage where I have to go every day in order to like see what's coming up. It's basically just because I'm a great sucker for design, and there's a lot of inspiration there. Like it's an ocean of inspiration that I can, I'll go to my team and say, hey, listen, there's a stack that I found. I want this font. Let's try this color and let's see how it goes on, right? So it's basically me becoming Picasso and saying good artist copies and great artist steals. So I'm just trying to be in that alignment. But I remember the first time when Aryan told me about you and your company. Like he was the one, hey dude, there's this guy, his company, his volume, and check out his app. And boom, I was like, dude, his app is something. Now I need to like talk to this person. Tell me where he is. And that's when he added you into that GC, remember, startup driven
Yep.
society or learning something. Because the app was so immersive. As I've been a person who has seen the generational paradigm shift of apps from like iPhone 4S, 4, 5, and the whole Android era, plus now the new wave of apps. This was the thematized app was very nocturnal. It was like very iOS themed. Everything was the games, there were games like Cut the Rope and Temple Run and something like that. Then came an era where Android was ruling the shit, Candy Crush and all of that kind of thematized era. And then now we have a new set of uh, design blueprints, and that's where like volume rules. So I think, I just because having all those paradigm shifts being observed, right? It's been a journey for me to see that I've come from where it was to how it has been. So yeah, for me it was like, wow, I found something really cool. I recommend it. I keep telling you about it, right? I'm very boasty about it. Why? Because every time some design thing comes up, I say, wait, dude, I have something to show you. And then I'll just say, go search for volume. It's a really great uh, app to explore. My brother is like a very great fan now. Like I was like, hey, dude, go and check out like volume stories. It's awesome. And he's a designer. Now that like connects a lot. So yeah, it's phenomenal how volume is trying to do, with the vision that you have and the whole team has. And I think when we met, we had a brief discussion about how things needs
Magazine.
to you you mention it in such a adverse way. It's very elusive from a side, like you say, reimagining the way content is consumed, right? Reimagining bit-sized magazines. So yeah, it's very evident with whoever uses the app, they know what's exactly they're getting. And with all of the improvements that you're doing, I think, yeah, it's going to be a phenomenal ride. It's for me for now. So yeah, and I don't get very much amazed by a lot of stuff. So that's very rare for me. And volume being one of those apps, so yeah, it's like it's on my main screen. So
Awesome. Awesome. It's on my bottom bar because again, but then I have all the unstable versions of volume on my phone.
Yeah.
Never, the latest version that's on the App Store is never there on my phone after 2 weeks.
So you're the person who like downloads all the betas and then like tries to envy other people. So
Dude,
yeah, that,
I have to
that's
have
tough.
to work on the beta, right? So we have this thing in volume that an update doesn't go till me, my co-founder, my developers, designers, and everyone in the creative team, after they use the last version of the update, we should have that inner feeling which says this is the best update which you have done so far. If that feeling doesn't come from inside, right? Because I think last update when we did, we had a good update, but we still couldn't say the word best update so far. So then my co-founder and one of my developers came up with this idea of like an actions activity feed, and we implemented that, and then we were like, oh, now it's the best update ever. So it's like that is the benchmark which we strive to achieve per update, and if that doesn't come from the team, the update just doesn't cut the bar to go live.
I think
So
it's all about
are you slow with the production? Like,
is that a grievance question by you?
yes. No. Like, because we are extremely slow. Like any changes to the app inside the app, we are very slow with it.
What's
Because
the reason behind it?
the simplest reason is ki in the initial stages, we weren't sure what we were doing. We were just creating the app. Okay. After that, we were like, okay, now what are we serving for? Like, why are we creating this app? So, it was stages of learning for us. We had never done product business, and we didn't have any books. मैंने कुछ पढ़ा नहीं था, ना मेरे co-founder ने ऐसा कुछ पढ़ा था. So we weren't aware of this world. We were just creating an app. So, now we are like, okay, we are focused. We know functionality. We know utility. We know exactly what we are doing. And now, because of that, when we go to Figma, again plugin, apna Figma ka
So the
thread,
plugin is, guys, I wrote a thread on
and I
Figma.
wrote a thread.
On Figma.
And
And
I'll
Jonah
make
is
a
going to
YouTube
use
video.
both of Yeah. It's on
Uh,
our Twitter handle. You can go check out. It would be
But
pinned,
this,
most probably.
Yes.
yeah, this thing which Aryan told about, especially being a first-time founder, not knowing exactly, what is the purpose of this app, because you build it off from a very, your thesis is so, driven by you and, your observation. It's not
Yeah.
probably the most data-backed, you know, uh, thing. You will just see what is and it's not like that observation could be wrong. In fact, in many ways, that observation could be correct. Like, in fact, I don't think Steve Jobs created a product by a data-backed observation, at least the first product which he has ever taken into the market. But like I said, since it's not data-backed, you don't ask these questions like who are going to be exactly your users, or who is going to use this app, why are they going to use this app, what is the purpose of this app. You don't. But I also come from this belief that if you're building an app, just go for the, like, tear down an app to its most fundamental component of this is what I call the core value prop, and just release it as it is. Because initially you're not trying to get top stars on the app, you just want them to use, because everything till then, whatever you're doing, just ends up being a hypothesis, right? And the thing with a hypothesis is, like even now when we make features, we know that feature has a chance of like being 50 to 60% wrong. It might be 30 to 40% right, which is the good part of. In fact, if you over time, the best thing about experiences, you can make that from 30% to 60% to 70%, as you craft your intuitions better. But there's always going to be a part of it that's wrong. But the market is ultimately the decider, because I've sometimes seen people who raise a lot but haven't released their product yet. So everything they're building on is on hypothesis. So the thing what happens is, after you release your product, sometimes you realize that a big parts of your hypothesis is not working. Like, you'll have to go back to whiteboard, and sometimes you're not prepared for it, because you have, like, there's a good chance you've painted a utopia for you that this is what I'm going to do, this is my GTM, this is what I'm gonna, this in these stages marketing will go. But once it's out and you see a different kind of like, your user just opens the app for 1 minute a day, and It's not because the app is bad. If it probably came in 2013, definitely they would spend a lot of time. But the thing is, today, think about your own behavior. At the end of the day, you probably use like 8 apps, you know, per day at max. Now, 8 is still on the upper end. Even Netflix, you don't open every day. You open it once a week or twice, or once in 2 weeks, or you just binge it. So
I
yeah,
think,
just being.
uh, on this particular thought that you have, I'm very contrarian to that. Why? Because I think the approach that you mentioned, right? Like you just ship it and let's see what's the feedback and then build on it. I think it's very YC driven. Why? Because this whole enigma created by YC is something that I very differ from. Why? Because I think, I mean, the example, let's take an example of Figma itself. You just mentioned it, right? Figma was established in 2012, and the first beta that came out was after 4 years,
2015.
which was in 2000, like, yeah, end of 2015, like 2016, it got released, the beta version, right? So,
But there would be multiple layers of closed beta that's going on. See, even if it's a closed beta, that's also fine. Like even if it's being used
yeah,
by
yeah,
80 or 100 people, that's also fine. But that 80 or 100, not from people 80 or 100, where that pool is just
From your
increasing
wait
over
list.
time. Yeah,
yeah.
that pool should be increasing over time. Then yeah, then you can wait for 4 years also, because you're understanding, you have some data which is real data to refine your product. My when I said about
Assumptions.
shipping
Yeah.
fast, yeah, when I told
I
about
think
shipping
this
fast, I
is,
meant about, yeah.
yeah, I think this is where, the approach kind of like changes. Why? Because people, like, as any of the first time founders, even I was that kind of person, and I realized this is something that won't work for me very, very well. So what we used to do generally, if you see a first time founder, they'll try to like plunge onto the product, they'll build some MVP, they'll build some prototype, get it into the market, get some feedback, and then start actually building the shit that they're trying to, like, market it for creating a very profitable business, right? Just because our environment, like, I think it's a virtue, it's a culture that has not been appreciated in India very much, which is research. I think in India, research lacks a lot. Like only the elitist kind of group practice it. That's why they have most of the data to actually drive any kind of decision. Just because first time founders are very aspirational driven, they lack that kind of term which I would coin as factfulness. They lack that kind of factfulness to actually build on something, right? Because see, our behavior as a first time founder, our behavior is very much uh, analogy driven rather than first principles driven, and that is where everyone fails. Like, I think if I talk about myself, my first ever like commercialized product failed. Why? Because I was starting from the idea, then went on to the research. And that was one of those moments where I learned that, okay, I need to have the research done first. Everything needs to be data driven, as like the point that you made. When we have enough data, when you think on a very personal level, where the data is enough for you to now get started with this small prototype idea to the market, then only start. I think this was something that I read in the biography of Steve's Jobs. That is, like, I remember he came into a conference. It was called D5 conference, like a very famous conference where he, like, that was the only conference he went for a consecutive year, like 4-5 years. And that's where he was asked, like, this is 2005. He was asked, which phone do you carry in your pocket? And he's like, usually I carry a Motorola or something, BlackBerry. I think he mentioned that. And he said, there's one more device that I'm carrying, but I won't talk about it because it's like something that we've been working on. This is 2005. The first iPhone was released in 2007. And I remember reading about his presentation. So before presentation, he actually gave a talk to his team. Like, we spent 2 years of research R&D. We have a dedicated R&D team in Apple where we research about what's needed, what's the gap in the market, what actually can be made out of, the product that we're building, and then actually forge it. So 2005, we made the R&D team. 1 year went into the R&D. Then the engineering team took over, and the design team took over. So the research part was where everyone was focused on for 1.5 years. That was something that amazed me, because most of the people, first time founders, as we are, I was never. I think if pointed fingers are, you also wouldn't have done that kind of research first, as then got into the product. It was like, okay, I got an idea. Let's build it. let's see what people have to say about it, and then move forward with it, right? But that's one thing where I always have a contrary thought. Like,
I
research
think
is something that
I think
lacks all the time.
I think it's better. So हम लोग we can't just start with research. So what I think what you're trying to say is start with core competence instead of research. Like
More
you
like a
are,
conformity. Like I would say ki, like, rather than competence, go for conformity. You have an idea, like how an idea is forged. How do you build a moat? You start with the foundation, right? You said, I want to build an app. Done. Okay. Now what's next? What kind of app?
right.
You know, you answer all of those first principles and then start with the research. I'm not saying just go out there and research about a lot of stuff.
So,
Right.
That's wastage of time, right? So I think
so,
that's what I'm focusing on.
so the thing is, when we started Volume, we had done enough, like a base level research in terms of why hasn't reading changed for the past, 20 years, 100 years. In fact, 500 years onwards, we've been having black and white content. And that was because, Gutenberg invented the printing press. You couldn't
Yeah.
print color. So that's why content became black and white. Then even when color printing came, it was just too costly to print color. But since that was the, the confirmed notion of doing things, even when digital space came, like on a digital real estate, you have no limitation of color, right? And yet people have been still making according to how people think reading should be, which is black and white. But
Right.
before the 15th century, there was like you would see illuminated manuscripts where, in fact, Hindu manuscripts, or even the pictures of Bible and all from before 15th century, they have a lot of not just calligraphy, but they have like beautiful artwork along with it. Like there was color because it was not mass produced, right? So today tech allows us to mass produce beautiful content. At the same time, we can actually scale it for the first time, not make it just restricted to a small bunch of people like how it was before 15th century. So we had done this basic research of how why didn't the industry shift, or how things have been going along with time. But like you said about research, see, the thing is, 3 years from now, when Volume releases a feature, we won't make an idea and release a feature. We'd be doing R&D for it for almost a year, mostly for a year. If we have the leisure to do it and the money to do it, definitely we'll be pushing features towards years. So, but I feel like when a startup launches, right? Because, okay, so startup cash is often deployed in a stage-wise manner, right? So the thing with the stage-wise manner is, initially you're running through a very jugaad system. So that entire, like, definitely you still have to research. And I feel all startup founders have to research. Like, even if I said I researched on Volume, today I realize that research is nowhere close to what I would research if I was starting another startup. Okay. I mean, my research shouldn't be just in terms of why reading has an impact. My research should be, what is my user behavior? What is the market tendency? How is the market, what does it look like the market is shifting towards? Though I have some contrarian views to it, because sometimes I feel some startups come and, just redefine the market as well. So those things cannot be predicted. But at the same time, that's what actually comes in a research. Like, there are so many layers to that research. But after that layer of research, I feel, you should see, when I talk about shipping a product fast, I don't mean shipping an incomplete product. See, people often have this notion that, when you ship something fast, it's this ugly MVP looking, like this, like a house
It's like
without
a
a paint.
uniform, like a skeleton being, like planted into the market.
When Cred released initially, it didn't have a lot of its services, right?
Yeah.
It was basically, it did its one core job, which is pretty hard to implement, because you have to take data from a lot of places to actually pay credit card bill on a third-party app. But they came up with that as the core value prop, to pay your credit card bill. And everything else, cred, rent, pay, and all these things came later on. So the MVP doesn't mean it has to be the shabby product, because as a designer, I'll tell you, when you're designing a button, it's not hard to choose a nice color for that button. It's not hard to put a good border radius for that button. And for a developer, that's going to take him probably less than 20 seconds to implement a good background color. These are not hard things to do. In fact, it's not going to take the designer's time, nor is it going to take developers' time. It's just choosing the right thing based on good taste. And that's it. Like, and then just implement your core value proposition. And that is what I mean by shipping fast. In India, the concept of shipping fast often means, like, very buggy product. It should not be buggy. If you're USP is buggy. That's not shipping. That's not shipping fast. You haven't shipped anything at all. What you've given is them. You've given them scraps. That's not a product anymore. So yeah, when I mean
I
by
think,
shipping fast,
yeah,
that's the thing.
this is the concept which I always, like, always try to bash on. Why? Because again, YC train concept. This particular thing where they sell the narrative that you need to just have the MVP enough to present it to all of your investors, get started, like get done with the money, and then start actually building on it. Right? Something that we have, like, I have observed in many of the companies that were inducted in YC at the time when the YC was a very fresh idea. Um, if you look at Reddit, I find Reddit case study very fascinating, ugly, and yet very challenging. Have you seen Reddit's first page? No, I'll tell you something. If you're very, very well versed with Python programming, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Reddit page looks
It
like
used to
it's
look like those old 2005 forums.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
actually said, like, it says self dot like self dot upward, like something that we
Mm-hmm.
use in Python, like OOPS programming, right? And I was very delusional about, okay, wait, this is the company that has 400 million users. This is the company that is
But
valued at this
but
billions.
back in that time, right, when people don't have option and you give them this option, right, that's fine. But in today's world, right, people are just used to good quality products. Like you can't give them a crap product. That's what I said, right? Like in 2010 or 2000, even 2010, we are a little more on the late side. Let's say in 2007, your product could be like you forget your entire CSS document. It's just an HTML file. Your entire project. Okay, there's no
Yeah.
sense of design. Things are just aligned from top to bottom. That's it. It would still work. Like if you had a core value, an actual value you're giving for users, it would still work. Because I remember when I was small and all, some of the products were really hard to use, and learning it itself, made you feel like wow, like Reddit
Yeah.
and all. When I first started learning, I was like wow, like I've entered this Reddit league
Yeah,
because
exactly.
it
I
just gives
also
you
feel
that
very
achievement.
I also feel that premium vibe because I joined at the time when old Reddit was actually migrated to the new Reddit. It used to say, like, here's the new Reddit, here's the old Reddit, like which one do you want to join and all. I was very fascinated. What the fuck happened here? Are you like sticking to this particular project or going to something very new? And that is where I believe, like, shipping of the product, like how actually particularly any first time founder should be thinking. As you said, right, we have a tendency of uh, thinking in a way where, okay, just because we want to ship fast, and the problem is the initiation or the trigger is not your intuition. It's the people's intuition that are behind you, like the investors, the team, the like the deadlines that you set for yourself. Those kind of thing hampers your process in such a way where you can't even damage control it. And
Yep.
that is where, and it comes at a cost. Like, if those people who are not understanding it for the first time, if they're starting and building a startup, if they don't understand it by learning from those people who actually build it, it's like a trauma. Like, it's a domino effect that is going to happen. One domino's fall and you're just going to go into a limbo where you won't even realize what the hell happened with my product. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this is something that I was very much intrigued about, and I was reading about it a lot. I discussed this with RN as well, about the selection of what you really want to do, like the filtration part of what actually goes in and what not. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically the decision making you take as a CEO, as a visionary, as a founder, or whatever title you got to yourself, right? And just because this chain of thought was like tinkering my mind, I went on to read the whole concept of design thinking and what it is. I think I wrote about this. I really want to expand on this and like understand what design thinking is. So yeah, let's see how the discussion goes, because design thinking is something that I have been following patterns with. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you take any era with any kind of technological revolution, abruption era, from the 1970s, 60s to 80s, 90s, then the 2010s, and now the decade ended and now there's a new decade that has started. So
Uh,
design thinking, it's something that we just talked about, like for the first time founders. That's the minimum research part that you need to do, that kind of mindset of thinking. It's basically I think, if you know about this, do you know about heuristics? Because in designs it comes, what
Mhm.
heuristics is, what kind of things needs to go into that design, what layering we need to put it on. So basically, if you want to understand heuristics, if you're an engineer, if you understand algorithms, which goes for the step to step process of what happens in a function, heuristics is something for the design. After this design, what layers comes up, what happens after this, right? So that kind of mindset needs to happen. Like, how do you layer yourself? Because any kind of visionary, if you coin yourself visionary, you need to have the kind of heuristic approach, right? You see 10 steps ahead of it before even implementing it. I think that's something that very rarely is practiced by uh, people. I found this in Aryan when when he came up, like when we met, and when I saw his Finflow's tagline. It says audio experience, like finance delivered in an audio experience to your ears in such simple manner. Yeah, I thought, okay, okay. The mindset that he has a very heuristic approach to it. Like there has to be a layer. We're going to deliver finance content. Yeah, how? We're going to deliver it through audio and where? It's right into your ears, right? So that kind of initiation actually triggered that kind of um, what can you say, like a collective idea, okay, what's happening here. And that's what I appreciate about most of the people that are actually dug deep into the startup world and actually trying to do something great. So yeah, what do you think? What do you think about the heuristic approach, if you have something on to that?
Before I talk about heuristic approach, how would you classify something like design thinking? Like, do you look at design thinking as a process, or do you look at design thinking as a philosophy, or like how would you describe design thinking? Because design thinking is such a subjective thing. Like, if you go to some places to
Yeah,
actually look at design thinking,
Oh, it's a
so
philosophy. It's a philosophy.
go on,
It
extrapolate.
can't
I want to
be.
hear.
It can never be a process. I think it can
I
never be a
think,
process.
and here's I think it's a process. Let's see how why do you think it's a philosophy? Because I'll tell you, there's a thing with philosophy. Philosophy is very flexible when it comes to different kind of notions. If you're talking about design thinking in a front end product manner, it will change. If you think of design thinking from the back end manner, it will change. If you think it from a consumer side, the whole design thinking changes. And if you think it from a some other side, it will change, right? So why do you think it's a
So,
philosophy?
philosophy is like that slime on which you can put in blocks, like that flowing liquid, and those blocks. What is happening with your video, Vivan? Ab theek hai.
Yeah, what
What
happened?
happened?
So his face just cut off from his.
My
Yeah.
face cut off from my
Yeah.
what happened?
You were looking
Go
like
on.
an animoji.
And-
I should have taken a
okay.
screenshot.
Hey, it's recorded. We'll get it.
So I think it's that philosophy is that cement on which you can put the bricks with the process. So whatever you're saying that in the front end you can put certain things, that's a process. But what do you ultimately aspire to build? कि end consumer को effect क्या मिल रहा है, and वो जो thinking है, that is design, and I think that is philosophy. So when I was reading about Muji, and this was 1 month apart, I was reading about Notion, and then I started reading about Muji because they had similar philosophies, Japanese. Okay. And Ivan, who's the founder of Notion, he said that he said exactly what Jonah said today. You have to create products which are extremely well built right now, because people are using extremely good products, and they know, like, they won't use bad products. There's no chance. And when while creating Notion, they had just one thing in mind. So everybody was asking him कि यार तुम क्या प्रोडक्ट बनाती है एकदम इतना सुंदर, it's just so beautiful, what was your thinking? And he was like, it's pretty simple, like this is no complication. We were thinking from the customer perspective that Notion should act as a tool. Like, this is the pen basically. Like, you can't feel a pen, but when you're using Notion, you should feel like you're using a very well built, amazing designer pen, something like that. And I think when I use Notion, I get that feeling. So that is the start of the process they started. And then obviously you learn design, you do whatever, and then you build stuff. It's always philosophy first. Even Muji is philosophy, 100% philosophy. Like this, Muji is
Vivan. Go on.
Muji is the philosophy of emptiness.
You bought a lot of emptiness, right?
How do you create things out of white?
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
I think.
Vivan, why is it a process?
Yeah, I'll tell you why is it a process and why it is not a philosophy. Like we'll go with a very engineered approach, right? So see, with philosophy, there's only one drawback that when you think about philosophy, now it's very linear. That you thought about this particular thing, you, as you said, it's a flowy thing where you can place blocks and all. So it's a linear pattern. When I say it's a process, it becomes a non-linear branched kind of methodology. Because see, if you talk about product development specifically, fundamentally product development happens from an agile point of view. Like you're very agile with stuff, right? So you can't call agile a philosophy. You'll always say, okay, agile is a process, right?
Agile is a philosophy. If you read the Agile manifesto on the official website, it is a philosophy. They have like principles, the principles of Agile, and the principles of Agile go beyond the methodology. It goes to the core of what Agile is. These are the guys who made Agile. They made this entire framework, these philosophies. That is pure philosophy. It's no process.
No, I think there's a layer to it, like agile on something, like it's embedded with something. So when you talk about agile on a Kanban board, that becomes a philosophy. Okay, on a Kanban board, what exactly it's going to happen? Again, a linear approach.
On a Kanban board, it becomes a process.
No, I think it's like the other way. Try to see it from my lens, how I'm thinking. When I say it's a non-linear thing, right? It's a methodology. So what happens when you think about any kind of product that needs to be designed? What's that one product that you use every day? Let's talk about a digital product, not Notion, not Muji, anything normal. What's that one app that you open every day when you wake up? Slack. Okay, let's take Slack. I opened Reddit, but yeah, let's go for Slack. So Slack, when it was created, right? How it was termed, how it was placed, that was not in our control. But when we look at the analysis, when we look at how users actually started adapting it, it became more like a solution thing, right? Where how it's solving people's problem. It's actually giving a cutthroat to the email communication between teams, and now we have Slack, more like a fast email kind of stuff where you can like to and fro communicate with all of your team members without even having the anticipation of waiting for an email. Now you're replying it back, right? So it's all about framing how you want to do stuff, and that's where design thinking comes in. You framed it. You frame the idea of communicating between teams in a fast manner so that the process of you building something reduces to seconds and you focus on something that is very important. So the framing pattern, a part of the process. I talked about the solution thing. So it solved a problem for communication, cutting down the whole delay time to fraction of seconds. That becomes a part of that frame, which is like solution oriented, right? And after this, every time you use any kind of feature in Slack, the design thinking comes into a way of reasoning every feature that has been added. Why do you think there are channels? So when we talk about Slack, when we see Slack from a third person's perspective, what happens? We feel like it's a virtual walk-in office. You walk into an office, you see a lot of cubicles, you see a lot of offices, like your own shells and all. So channels is what? A depiction, a reasoning of those kind of office spaces, cubicles, right? So channels right there. What's the feature? Like there's a feature called huddle, right? What's enabling that kind of feature? If there's a reasoning process into it, what happens? Like huddle is a feature of you having a conference room to yourself where you come on to huddle and everyone's discussing it around you. Nothing but a feel of a conference room, right? That becomes the reasoning aspect of it. So when I say design thinking is deep down into the process wala part, it's all of these things that are very non-verbal. Like in philosophy, you have to be very verbal about it. Like, okay, this particular thing, why? Because this, then this, then this. In design thinking, it's very non-verbal, and the depiction of it, the whole representation of it happens by its own. You don't have to like make a effort to actually understand. In philosophy, you have to understand every bit of it, right? How the representation happens of Slack. Like there's always a how can you say, there's always a concrete trigger every time you're on Slack. What? Like there has to be an engagement of teams, there has to be communication throughout, something that never can be justified with philosophy, right? And it's more like a it's more like an exploration kind of thing. Every time you're on Slack, you're learning something new, which also can't be explained by philosophy. So when we talk about design thinking in a product, right, it actually cuts off from the philosophical side and it goes into a process. I think that's the descriptive way of understanding how design thinking is a cumulative process and not a philosophy all of a sudden.
You know, like how you said that philosophy needs to be explained, but process doesn't need to be explained, right? See, like, you know, when I think of design thinking, I see it like both. Like, you know, both of you guys have, you know, told the core essence of that is needed in, like, at least what we think of design thinking at Volume. So one is a philosophy aspect which acts like your core, and that core results into a process, because everyone who comes will not understand the core on day one, but the process can be understood on day one. For example, simplicity, like that is one core ethos of your company. That is a philosophy. Okay, it doesn't become a process. It is embedded into the process because it's the philosophy that you know created your process. But I feel like that is why companies have a, you know, a manifesto. Especially, I mean, in design, you have this design manifesto, you have a company manifesto, what the company stands for, or what is the root principles of the company, and that is reflected into the product. Like, you know, when Apple talks about simplicity, that is a philosophy of the company, but that is reflected into their process. So when they ask the questions, you know, their questions will be in such a way that, you know, it is to remove clutter. Like they'll probably have a special process itself to remove the clutter, because the philosophy, you know, resulted in the process. It's more like, you know, how you have, one is this you know, okay, let's go to something like law, for example. So most of law comes out of, you know, something that's very abstract, like the Constitution. The Constitution is pretty abstract in the way how it's explained. These are philosophies, but the law is like a yes or no rules. It's do this, don't do this. People understand the law, but you explain Constitution and those things to the people, those are like hardcore philosophy, which is so abstract. Like if I tell it to someone, two people will understand it two different ways. Okay, and but when I explain them the law, it is just exact to the point on what to do, what not to do. If I have a new employee in the company, I can tell him this is our ethos, and it'll take him probably 4, 5, 6, 8 months to probably, you know, even get that ethos or make that as a core part of their ethos. Like for example, design at Volume is not something designers do. Everyone does design. Like even if a developer doesn't like a color, he'll just message me saying, I don't like this color, or I don't like this border radius, and we just look at it again and we're like, yeah dude, the border radius looks bad, this can't be shipped. So it's like a core part of everyone, that everybody thinks whatever is shipped out of Volume should look good. So in the development process, designing process, everything is approved if the shit looks good, or like, because design is one of our core philosophies. One of the things in Volume, we don't have a marketing team. Okay, we have a creative team of designers and writers. These writers could write maybe long form articles for our website. They could write blogs. They could even make reels, summarize content for reels. But the nature of that marketing element needs to be new. Similarly, like for example, if you're making a reel, you need to have a very good hook. That is not someone, a marketing person is not coming and doing that for you. That needs to be really embedded into you, that this needs to hook someone. Even when a designer creates a poster, what pops out, what doesn't pop out, if it's an advertisement for something, what needs to pop out. This is not something a marketing person has to come and tell you, or a marketing copywriter has to come and tell you. This, even when I learned design, some of the core fundamentals of marketing was so embedded into the design in the design school itself. So that is again one more philosophy that we have. Now from there results in a process. So in our process, which goes by stage, at the end of the day, when we get a script, is there a good enough hook for the script? Is the CTA good to create an engagement in the script? Those are questions that are asked because of the philosophy that exists. So
I think if you actually visualize it as a system, right? So from my perspective, there are three stages of how any kind of startup or any kind of idea can be judged in this framework, right? It's like ideation, implementation, and innovation. Because I believe the fact that if you're building something, it has to be disruptive, or what's the point, right? So if you see, there's a pillar of ideation, there's a pillar of implementation, there's a pillar of innovation, right? So design thinking, just because it's a process, it's the bridge between all of these things. The covering gap of all of these particular pillars are done by design thinking. More like a system. You imagine this as a function of a system, right? So that is where I think if you try to take it from a philosophy, let's like hypothesize design thinking might be a philosophy, right? So when you see the overlapping behavior of these particular pillars, like from ideation to implementation, there's an overlapping scene, and from implementation to innovation, it's an overlapping scene. If you think design thinking is a philosophy, you won't be able to bridge the gap. But if you see it as a process, it bridges the gap in itself, right? So that is why I think, and when design thinking is actually prescribed into building a business, that is what we are trying to polish our swords into as well. That is how you should see it. What do you think, Karan?
Mixed thoughts, actually. Mixed thoughts. So yeah, I kind of agree with you. I disagree in some aspects, but it actually makes sense. So but when I was listening to Jonah, I wanted to ask a question. So you've studied design?
Yeah.
not formally. Like I've dude, YouTube is my university. I studied electrical engineering formally.
So you're gonna
Hey,
post
you're
the
also
thread
an
in
Indian
YouTube.
So basically I had 4 years to study design.
Yeah, this is great.
So you can thread it out. YouTube is a free university, but most people don't know how to use it. 10 channels.
10 channels.
Dude,
2 lakh
I
likes. 2 lakh
I
likes.
didn't have channels per se. For me, for me, most of design comes from exposing myself to good taste. Okay, because I feel like the more good taste, I mean, stuff that really looks good, like stuff that you show to anyone, a common man, and they say this looks
And they
good.
like it.
Yeah, and they like it because. So how do you reverse engineer that? What is that made them like it? Is it the way how the font is? Ultimately, it's a composition. But the real trick isn't to understanding what created that beauty in the composition, because then you can repeat them once you understand the magic trick behind the composition. And imagine, and that is from one composition, right? If you expose yourself to 2000 such compositions every day, when you're bored, you just go through Pinterest and Beyond. Okay, you're exposing yourself to so many. You like certain designs, you don't. You start breaking down everything. 2000 designs you have. That is so many different styles of designs which you have broken down into and try to understand why this works. You look at cover art. Even when I'm listening to music, I just look at cover arts and just ask, why does this cover art look good? Because sometimes the cover art is just a white screen with text in like really small written at the center. Like you can't even see the text. You'll have to squint your eyes, but it's still so catchy. And it's probably because the text is written so small on the cover art that makes it so attractive to read the text. So just breaking down design is probably the most important way. But that is where I learned more than design aesthetics. That's not everything about design, because later when I got more exposed to UX design, so my fundamentals of UX design basically come from front-end engineering. Like, I won't call myself a front-end engineer, but more of like a web developer. And when I used to do web development, HTML, CSS, JS, I kind of understood the basics of how things are positioned on a screen and what is not possible. What is realistic design? What is unrealistic? Because when you come from the realm of visual designer, you're on Figma and Photoshop. You can place it wherever you want.
Anything is neumorphism. Everything is
the canvas is flying. But
Bloody
when you start
Microsoft.
when you start developing for screens, you realize everything is placed like a block. Like the
Right.
first part of the screen is a block. A button can be here. If you place it like this, that's 5 times more work for the designer. If you just make it, everything is like a grid. All your buttons are placed. It's like this invisible grid which you need to visualize. And once you have those fundamentals, I went from a layer of free design to understanding implementable designs. Yeah, then that is basically my whole. Then I was more interested in things like uh, when you design for certain things. Like I was more interested around these things, like uh, what would an interface for a car look like, because I felt like mobile screens are kind of saturated, like because I wanted to be a product designer before being a founder first. So when I wanted to be a product designer, my pursuit was I wanted to work on UX of something that has still not been solved. For example, in-app car touchscreen UX has still not been
Right.
solved. For example, Tesla, you have to always look down, you have to go touch the screen, you have to take full control from the car. Okay, Tesla has safety features, but still take that full this thing from the car and read it. So I was very much interested that, and more on the VR AR space, because even if VR AR is there, the UX is crap, top notch crap it is. Like you have to put your hand over something, wait for it to be selected, and so those are open rooms for you to innovate. So for me, it went from that area. And the thing is, to implement UX, I always knew that you need to understand the tech or how things are rendered first to even implement it in the first place.
So
I
you
think
combined your technical knowledge with your design aesthetics, and it was
Yeah.
I think I wrote about this in my thread itself. Like the founder of Figma, he actually started when he got the Thiel Fellowship. No? He was called by the fellowship grantees that this person is a blend of art and engineering. I think that is where you are also placed right now in our eyes, right? Like it's a perfect blend of art and
If my
engineering.
developers hear it, they know how less of front end I know. Like I know enough of web development to pull off the present volume website which you guys see. That is not a developer. That is where half of my night sleep goes. But that's it. Website is my this thing. I can't go beyond that and make a backend for the website and make it a functional website.
Right. I think I can speak for all of three of us when it comes to talking the core design aspects of how we experience design in everyday life. Do you agree? What do you think? Like, are you that kind of an observational entity where you
all the time?
everything that you see, you try to like dissect the design before even getting into it?
All
Because
the
I've
time.
been that person, like seeing the anatomy of everything before even. And I think my thoughts got a voice when I saw this podcast about everything design. And this triggered the idea when I was watching this series on this show on this documentary particularly on Netflix. It's just called Abstractive Design. We talked about this earlier. I talked about
in the first podcast or second one. I think.
something like that. If you have seen that particular like documentary, I was blown to know that everything that I observe has a genre, has a category of design in itself. I used to love footwear from a design point of view. I never knew that footwear was such a ergonomical science of design behind it that I was blown. I was very fascinated. So I was very fascinated by Apple stores. So I got to know that there might be some design element because Apple stores are not architectural, or it's not something very centric to engineering, structural engineering, right? It's very aesthetically pleasing to you in so many patterns, right? I was very fascinated. So every time I tried to observe any kind of entity that is in front of me, I had that kind of observational lens in front of me where I scrutinized everything with design. Do you have that kind of thing?
Definitely. So Apple is that one place where I actually started appreciating, minimalist design, because minimalist design in the sense like, the fact that sometimes you might have amazing taste, but you can't implement it all. And that, humility to understand that you can't implement it all is so important. The fact that on a black screen in SF Pro display, if you write think, it looks like it came out of Apple. Okay. The
Yeah,
fact that
exactly.
you can make something pretty with just 3 variables. Okay. To know that you can implement something like that, and something which requires too much complexity is just too hard to implement. And so whenever I look at design, I also compare my skill set to what is achieved. Like when I look at cred design, I know I cannot implement at least the illustrations yet. Okay, but I have it behind my mind so that someday I could get someone who can see that to make those illustrations.
I think that is where I always try to have a barbarian approach. Because just because Apple has taught that kind of philosophy, right? We don't want to become like any other IBM or Lenovo or Motorola or BlackBerry. So we'll do something that is so obnoxious, like we'll make it a trend in the industry. And then after a point, like Apple became that kind of trendsetters in the industry, right? So that is where my what can you say? Like, that observation slips in. Like if you really want to design something, taking inspirations is okay, but you need to have that kind of layout, your own. It might be derived from somewhere, but there has to be a layout done before even getting into the online world and finding out inspirations for your creation or something like that.
So I'm not talking about inspiration in this matter. So when I say implementable designers, so for example, at Volume, we don't follow a minimalist design. If you look at some of our banners and all, they're very design intensive. They don't represent minimalism in any way. But what I meant by having that skill to reality ratio is, I keep telling my designer, even when you're making an advertising banner, when others see it, when a common man sees it, it should look like this shit came out of $1 million studio. The thing is, you could have insane ambitions planned, but you after making all the layers and stuff, right? It looks like two people who just studied design 6 months back implemented it. If that is what the public gets the notion from it, even if it took 5 days of hard work, I don't want that to go out in public. But even if something took 2 hours to come into implementation, like let's say someone took Pexel's ka background, which is amazing photography, on top of that with some good typography, they've combined these two things, and when someone sees it, they'll be like, dude, this looks so premium that I can't say this came out of a 2-month-old startup or a 3-month-old startup. If that is the emotion that comes out, it'll get shipped, because I feel that perception is so important, that that it looks professional is still not the word. It's the fact that this has been done by someone who knows their work, or like I said, $1 million studio.
I was checking to our analytics, and a lot of people are in their like below 20s.
Vivan is gone.
He's dark.
He's muted and gone. Hey, hold your thought, Aryan.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, can you message him on your phone, because my phone is streaming my face.
Where is it? What happened?
Hey, you're in Delhi, right, Gurgaon?
Yep. Nope. Noida.
Dude, with all this floods in Bangalore, we were thinking, why not consider Delhi
for
he's back. Office? Awesome.
Yes, continue. I just got lost.
Lost into the dark. Your DP is also dark. Like,
yeah, it's intentional.
Okay. So we're not going deep into that, but so what I was saying is there our audience, a major part of our audience is below 20, if you've seen Vivan.
I hate them. I love them. I love them.
So and what I've seen, like the trend on Twitter right now, and a lot of people are from Twitter, they are interested in UI UX design, and they are going into those fields. And one of them came up to me and asked me, because of like, I think hamara wo abstract wale episode ki how do I approach UI design, and I'm like, I'm not a designer, like not a particular designer, but I just generally know design, like aesthetics. I know how to place things. I know those things. And she was like, how do you know that, like कैसे करते हो वो चीज? एंड मैंने बोला, मैं फिग्मा पे नहीं सीखता. मैं मतलब फर्स्ट थिंग इज नॉट कि यू गो टू टूल्स, यू डोंट होल्ड द पेंसिल. लाइक that's for finesse, that's for practice, that's for becoming better at the skill. But इस वाले स्किल से सबसे पहले चीज आती है, हाउ डू यू ऑब्जर्व, व्हाट डू यू गेट योरसेल्फ इनटू. तो I don't know, travel is a major part of it. So whenever I travel, I click photos, and in those photos I observe later on that what was the thing, how was the architecture done. In Singapore I did that, in Paris I did that. Paris is the, so every designer should go to Paris. Paris is a painting city. Literally every
Fund us.
part.
Fund us, Aryan.
What?
Fund us, and we will be in Paris.
Fund us. Acha. I'm no Arihant Aryan. Arihant, if you're listening to this, we
Don't
want
tell. He will be here. He'll be
we
like,
want
bro,
your 1.5 million. Sorry, 150 million.
150 million.
Sorry.
Yeah.
तो गरीब आदमी थोड़ा कम ही सोचता है. तो पेरिस में यू कैन ऑब्जर्व सो मेनी थिंग्स, इतनी सारी चीजें, एंड वो सारी मैचअप हो जाती है. जब मैं, मेरे पापा डिजाइनर है, लाइक प्रोफेशनल डिजाइनर, एंड नाउ लाइक ऑब्वियसली ही इज मूव्ड अप द रैंक्स एंड स्टफ. His occupation is not a designer now, but yeah. So he told me that whatever he's learned is because of the things that he had at the time. And at that time, he had Tintin comics. Okay, so those color
love it.
combinations and the beautiful art that Hertz created, that's what influenced that design in him. And he is a very good designer. तो मेरे को भी यही चीज समझ आती है. एंड आई वाज अ टिंटिन रीडर, एंड वो मेरा भी वही बनता गया. एंड अब हमारे पास तो बहुत सारे सोर्सेस हैं. हम यूट्यूब पे चले जाए, हम पेरिस की स्ट्रीट्स ऐसे ही देख ले तो हम समझ सकते हैं उसको. बट
Yeah.
तो इट्स ऑल अबाउट हाउ मच टाइम यू स्पेंड वॉन्डरिंग एंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग हियर एंड देयर, क्या हो रहा है, ये होता क्यों है, ये ऐसे क्यों लाइक बना हुआ है, इसका कोर फंक्शनैलिटी क्या है. सो व्हेनेवर आई गो टू अ मूजी स्टोर, लाइक मूजी इज माय डिजाइन इंस्पिरेशन. So whatever Muji, like मैंने बहुत सारे videos देखे, and I'm also going to do a thread again and a reel on
Again.
Muji. It will be more about their design philosophy. I don't think that's going to work because nobody cares about it, but I'm still going to do it. So it's more like, how do they start? Their starting point is the perfect functionality. ठीक है. तो whenever I implement anything, I use a, मैं obviously Figma पे like blank slate होता है, उस पे चीजों को पहले function, first thing is what does this thing have to do, and that's it. उसके अलावा I don't have to, like, no frills, I want no frills. So my first design is like not even a wireframe, it's barely a wireframe, it's like बहुत ही गंदा दिखने में. And then just like Jonah said, sometimes things like I think I shared a FinFlow ka 2.0 ka version with Jonah some time back, and I think Vivan ko bhi bheja tha. This is a small bar thing I did, that
You showed me. Yeah.
that progress bar.
I didn't get anything like this.
No, you said that you like the progress bar, the greenish progress bar.
Oh, okay.
See,
Yeah.
that was the first, that was the first thing for the new version that I made. And it was extremely functional, because in the previous version, whatever the response we got was that I don't get it कि यार ये audio है. And I'm like, obviously nobody gets कि audio है, तो कैसे पता लगेगा. सब लोग Spotify यूज करते हैं, Apple यूज करते हैं, उनको पता चलता है वहां से. तो you have to understand कि यार दूसरों को किस चीज से वो कनेक्ट करते थे, लेकिन ऑल्सो इम्प्लीमेंट थिंग्स विच यू हैव ऑब्जर्व. तो आई एक्चुअली लाइक दैट डिजाइन. मैंने उसको कोई ऐसे करके नहीं सोचा कि लाइक डिफरेंट लेवल पे कि मैं उसको बहुत ब्यूटीफुल बनाता हूँ. आई एम जस्ट लाइक, ओके, पीपल लाइक इट, आई जस्ट मेक अ सिंपल सा प्रोग्रेस बार. एंड आई वाज द वन हु वाज लाइक नॉट इन फेवर ऑफ प्रोग्रेस बार. आई वाज लाइक, it's just a 1 minute 2 minute audio, just click on it and you know कि 1 minute 2 minute audio है. Like, why do you need a progress bar? It just sucks. So everything starts from functionality, but before functionality it comes from observation and those
Snippets
inputs
of observation. Yeah. I think
हमेशा होने
ये
चाहिए.
जब भी whenever you bring up Muji, right? So
I see
my
passion.
yeah, I think passion is also all philosophy on one of the sides. There's one thing that pops in my brain every time, and that's the culture. Why? Because I am like a obsessed person with Japanese culture. Okay? And the way they have reverberated with whatever culture they have in everything, from the art and handcraft they make, to the cities that they have built, to the art forms of movies and animes and all sort of media consumptions, plus the products that they make. I think this was said by Steve Sir itself, right? Like, uh, if you talk about who are the best people in the market with the great product, they're the Japanese people, but they don't they don't market their product. Why? Because they focus on the quality of the product, right? And every time I hear about Muji, whenever he mentions it, there's no other person that I've seen talk about Muji than he does. Because I think that's the nuanced connection that he has made with Muji, right? It's like everyday Muji here and there. He has all sort of products of Muji.
Products, yeah. If
One
you've
thing that
seen their
always
cup, have you ever seen their cup?
there's no Muji store here, dude.
Yeah, me and Vivan live in a very dry place.
Yeah, this is very.
You can't say dry, bro. You live in Bangalore.
He
Oh,
lives in.
No, I'm in Vadodara.
you're in Vadodara. Acha, I
Guys,
Yeah.
thought.
privacy is anyways.
Cool, cut it off.
Acha, you're with Jonah right now.
Me?
We met
Yeah.
we met a few weeks back.
Acha. So, oh, I didn't know that. But your office is in Bangalore, right?
We haven't set it up yet, so we were like, you know what, let's go remote for a few more months before we actually go
After
there.
the round
So
closes, then you'll be back.
firstly, yeah. Then secondly, we're a little confused. Should we go to Bangalore only, or should we look for Gurgaon, that
Goa.
area? Because
Goa.
no. I meant not Goa. We still want a place where we can actually network with actual VCs and stuff. Because being here, I know how hard it is to video calls just don't work after a point, especially when you're raising
Yeah.
big checks. Right? It doesn't.
A and B. Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
can't.
think we should follow one of those great legendary people in our ecosystem, which has a remote setup and like operates from your favorite person, Bamboo, CEO Zoho.
Yes.
Like he's the person he operates from a village.
But he does not need to go meet VCs, right? He is the VC.
Yeah, now,
Who is
right?
this?
Sridhar Vembu, Zoho
He's
founder.
this Zoho's
Oh, okay,
founder.
Zoho.
Yeah, thread coming up. Zoho thread coming up.
I think this has become a thing, right? We always try to put a dib on any of the ideas that comes up, right? So if I'm
It's
the one
nice.
who's
It's nice you guys are not there on YouTube. So like, you guys just make interesting topics, and I'll just observe from far and decide what to make for YouTube.
I think Vivan is
I'm
also coming on YouTube.
I'm soon slowly slide into YouTube. Don't worry, I'll be there.
The observation was that even my father was telling me Vivan has a very good persona for YouTube, and because of this channel is working a lot because of Vivan, because the way he speaks is, I don't know, like that attracts people a lot. So
What?
नहीं. So you can engage people, you can grab attention, and you can grab that attention for a long time. With me, it is something like I think so much while talking that I sometimes the sentences are not proper, like they're raw, but that works for me because I don't, I am that person. I don't want to.
It's a very great point. Like if you really want to have a divergent conversation, right? The concept of productization. I'll be very honest, just because I'm going to use a lot of Steve Sir references. There's an excerpt in biography of Walter Isaacson that Steve Jobs was a poser. He used to pose in front of people in a way that what I'm doing in stage, the stage design that I've done right now, it's impromptu. Like this is very natural. This is like authentic. I'm doing it right now.
Right.
But behind the scenes tells that he used to practice his lines. He used to practice it in all the way. So I was the nerd, the geek that watched 2007 ka iPhone launch like numerous times. Like it's now above 1,000. Like it has been gone 1,000, 2,000 times. I remember all of the segments, right? And when I read the book, the context was very easy to recall. If you have seen the video, you know, there's a moment where he calls a pizza guy or Starbucks and he orders lattes. Can you order for 4,500 lattes? And they say, what? And they're like, okay, sorry, wrong number. And then he cuts it. So this was also productized. How you present in front of, when you talk about stage design, the main protagonist, the prop of that stage needs to be grilled in a way where it's very authentic. It needs to be very natural. It should be impromptu. Like you do something amazing on the stage without even having that kind of rehearsing. Or it shouldn't look like a robotic kind of theme, like any algorithmic way where every step is going, okay, one step, second step, third step.
At one
That
point, even Wi-Fi stopped working in the launch.
Yeah, exactly. That reaction was productized, not the process. Like this Wi-Fi stopped working, it was something that happened. So when you talk about behind the scenes, the people who were actually behind the iPhone launch, sitting on the backstage, they were fired because of this particular thing. Steve Jobs was on stage, and I'll tell you the ferocious nature of Steve, sir.
He
He
said
was
also
very
on stage, someone's gonna get fired today.
Yeah, he fired, like when he was doing the demo, and his demo crashed, right? Where he was trying to open a web browser, and the web browser was not loading the New York Times page. So he said, okay, so it takes time longer. He like dwells around, okay, iPhone 4, it's great.
Then he tells everyone to shut down internet
Yeah,
also.
he's like, okay, here two things are either going to happen. Either I show you the demo and all the features that we have planned, or you just like you go and type on your laptop and we can show it on the backstage. How do you want to go for it? So they say, okay, we want to see the demo. Great. Now I want everyone to like close their laptops, put it aside, police each other, and then we're going to start the demo. So that is the moment where I realized, okay, if you really want to sell yourself, and as Aryan mentioned about, like why you grab a lot of attention, it's something very selectively that's happening. I'm not intending to do that. I'm more of a repellent guy, because I don't want that kind of noise in front of me. But because I follow this principle of minimalism, it is it preaches you to be very intentional with whatever you're doing. And I don't get overwhelmed with a lot of stuff. Why? Because it's all the appearance. It's not the appeasement that I want, right? So when it comes to actually showcasing yourself, it's always the productization part. And this is what I've learned throughout the years, that has been from like my school days to my engineering days, and now the entrepreneurial stages. If you're not productizing yourself in a way, if you're not being a very great poser, everyone is going to see through you. And most of the founders that are very see-through from a very afar point of view, they're not taken very seriously. You would never. I'll give you an example. I used to adore Mark Zuckerberg, because he was the first person from where I got this word known, entrepreneur. 2011 10 ki baat hai. When his social network movie came out, I was like 10 11 years old, right? And that is the first time when I heard entrepreneur.
We were
I
10, 11 years.
Yeah, 10 and 11 years old. And when I got to know, okay, this is one cool guy in his 19s, 19-year-old, he did something blah and blah. Everyone could
Drop
see
out.
through him. Everyone was readily able to judge him. He became very predictable. And that's the shame for any kind of, like entrepreneur or startup founder. When you become very predictable, your team is not going to take you seriously. Your people that you're serving, or the consumer that you're targeting, they won't take you seriously. Why? Because they already know what you have. There's no anticipation buffer, and that's where you lose all of the stuff. So I think this involuntarily came the productization thing, where you unintentionally, it's happening. It's like a psychological factor that you're trying to create. I'm not intending to do that, but it happens. So whenever, like, this is something that he mentions quite a few times, and I try to observe it, like what's the real deal behind this. And that's when I got to a conclusion that I know, okay, it's all about the productization thing. How do you package it, right? The best part about buying an Apple product is not just the product, it's the packaging as well. So I think that's how you can like funnel the whole idea of crystally productizing yourself.
Yeah.
You do it very well on your threads. If you are not aware of it, like people can hear what you're saying because of that simplicity recall that you have with everything, right? Aaron Kocha means he'll simplify things. I mean, it's very, I'll tell you what happened. Like, I saw your stack on volume. And first, I was very angry. How the hell can he take something that I thought? Because I had that idea. Okay, if I'm on volume, I'll make something black and white and a little bit of gray. And then I open the first tag that is suggested to me is Aaron Kocher, notes on minimalism. And I'm like, okay, what happened here? And
Jonah, that thing that I told you now, I just go for function that was present in my stack as well. So it was so functional based. I was like, just do this. This looks beautiful. I love that font because we use it everywhere on FinFlow, and that's Apple's font. That's like almost like Apple's font.
Just because you did that, I had to trickery and make, just because you created an Excel and Word processor of Bill Gates Windows, I had to go and do something else just because of this.
Bro, if anything that's not successful, it's pages.
It doesn't have to be successful. It's a utility.
It is a crappy utility. You still need to download Word.
I was very fascinated by those pre-installed apps, because for the first time I opened Keynote, and the first theme that I see is of Apple's Keynote that happens. Have you seen that?
I design all my pitch decks in Apple Keynote, dude. I showed it to my investors. My investors were like, amazing animation.
Yeah.
Because PowerPoint, I've always tried to recreate my presentations from Figma, and it's just impossible. Because the thing is, when you're actually presenting, you can put footnotes and stuff which you can't do on Figma, right? Yeah. So to get
this was something. Now the dilemma comes, right? Just because I hate both of the companies, I hate Google as well, I hate Microsoft as well. So now you have to choose between, just because it's functional for the team. So I went with Google Docs. Particularly, I eradicated everything Microsoft, like from Excel to Word to PowerPoint. We don't want to do
But you chose Google, not Notion.
So Notion is like our database. It's like more like an accessibility stuff. What has happened with Notion, just because they're like increasing their computational power with the software, it's not compatible on most of the devices. So it's better to go web-based rather than...
A lot of people on our team have a problem with Notion. And
it
they
crashes
use the
a
web.
lot because it's very highly intensive graphic software over Notion. So it becomes really difficult for most of our team members to function on it. So that's why, just because everyone is readily accessible on Workspace, like Google Workspace, we intended to choose that, just because you need to choose between worst and worst. So I think I chose...
I still won't choose Google Docs. Google Docs suck.
This is the same person. I'll tell you, Jonah, something. This is the same person when I met in 2021. He was the one dude, Google Workspace is like a collaboration and stuff. Every team can go there. And I was the one who said, dude, just try Notion. Once you try it, there's no going back. And it's like, hey, I don't like Notion. It's like, yuck, the gray design, the dull design. 3 months later into using Notion, dude... Notion is the best thing.
What makes Notion one of the most successful startups?
This person denied everything, and now 3 months later, he writes, what was the thread name? Notes. Few thoughts on Notion, something like that.
What makes Notion the most successful startup?
Yeah. Exactly. Something like that. And I'm like, wait, dude, teko to Google Docs jamta tha na. He's like, no, bro, Notion is everything. And his whole startup is running on Notion. So like, yeah, hypocrisy. But yeah, I think Notion...
I don't use Notion. Notion is still hard for text. Text, though, I go for Google Docs only. See, I hate Google Docs because you can't make things pretty over there. But cross collaboration, right? The thing with Google suite of...
What do you mean text? Like, what do you mean text?
Content.
Content.
Okay, so for example, a content writer writes something. So on our Notion document, we have a lot of parameters, right? Like, who is it assigned? When was it created? So we have something called edited doc link. So over there, they put the link. We go directly to the link from there. And instead of putting it in Notion, because Notion, breaks every paragraph into blocks. And
Yeah.
it becomes really hard to edit, especially on phones. To choose the word in center of a block, right, becomes too messy. But on
Right.
Google Doc, it becomes just much easier, and everyone has Google accounts. Everyone sitting and commenting. The document gets much more. There's so much more communication that's happening
Right.
in this thing
It's
than
it's it's all about reducing the friction of whatever utility that you're using, right? I think I just because I was researching about Figma, right, I came across this article. It was by Forbes or something, where they mentioned what Google Docs did to word processing, what GitHub did to code. Figma is trying to do what design, right? I mentioned this. I
Yeah.
copied this statement. Why? Because the friction is reduced. Now you see what kind of workspace they're running. They have uh, Google account. They have all of your contacts. They have all of your emails lined in your Google account. Now, as soon as you're on your doc, any contact that you mention on Google Doc, it's been reverted back to your personal account. It searches like, do you have someone of that name or email? And now you can like collaborate very easily. The friction is reduced right now, so that makes it much more conducive in order to, and in comparison to Notion, right? So like,
Especially for something like collaboration. When it comes to Google and Microsoft Office tools, right? Google is so similar to Figma versus Office is so similar to uh,
Adobe.
Microsoft Office, Adobe, because
Yeah.
Adobe's problem was, even when they went to cloud, right? You ask any designer, they'll say the cloud is kind of crappy. They might call saying we have put so much money into cloud, which they have, and they've built infrastructure. But at the end of the day, the file format that's working, this .psd, .ai and all, they're fundamentally file formats which are stored locally. So what happens is, if I created in 2 years old Photoshop, and if that file format is given to me in the newer version of Photoshop, sometimes there might be compatibility issues. Now, when you came to Figma, unless you really wanted to export a file, you're never working with a file format, because everything is stored from the cloud natively from day one. You never have to deal with the file format. The file format is automatically getting updated as Figma is getting updated, and Figma runs on your browser. Even your the application version of Figma is basically a browser version of Figma
Browser based,
wrapped into a application. So it's ultimately running purely on the browser. So the fact that you never have to deal with file format, the file format is auto updated. The moment you save the PSD locally, it's gone. Like, its compatibility is gone from there. So even if you upgrade your Photoshop, maybe that file may just be incompatible. You might have used certain things that was stopped in the later versions of Photoshop. Becomes very hard to handle, especially these file formats. Same for Office. I upgraded my Office. Some important docs couldn't be used, and they got converted, okay, to the newer word. Like, it opens with a bracket saying, converted from the old, from a depreciated file format. And the thing is, it completely changes the design and the formatting, because it's converted from those older versions. But when you're working with Google Docs, you are never dealing with a file format. It's just a Word document, but it's not a .docx file. So because of that, collaboration becomes simple, because everyone's laptop, everyone's devices are working on the latest version of whatever is there on their word processor. Because that is one of the most powerful thing. Even anything which you're working locally, cloud, whatever saves it on the cloud, has that entire independence from file format, and that is super powerful.
Right.
Adobe's main thing which they said was, one of the core things they want to focus on with this Figma acquisition is collaboration. And it's so funny that with all the suits in Adobe, this thing, Figma right now, Figma is the best product that has a cross-platform collaboration.
Yeah. I mean, that is like one of those things that actually distinctively creates Figma and gives them a upper hand in everything. They're trying to compete with a legacy company that has like products from decades back, right? And when you see the power of globalization they have, Figma, how they actually uh, expanded into all of the domains, right? That is very beautiful. Like, it's very difficult to change the behavior of anyone who's using a very specific set of software and making them run into something very inclusive of never seen before kind of software, right? Imagine about Zoom. I think no one ever heard about Zoom. Is an old company. Like if no one's know about it, I'm going to write about it yet again. Zoom is a pretty old company, but they came into relevance when it was actually
This is
needed,
COVID.
right?
Yep.
So the globalization power that Figma or Notion or and in fact there are many other companies that you can talk about. I think Canva for that matter, and Slack for that matter. These companies are getting acquired by all these big players because of that one factor. Like they're trying to reduce the friction. They're trying to actually go global. And what happens? Like if you break that kind of barrier, like every set of boundaries have barriers. When it comes to Chinese people, there's a language barrier. So what if you create an app where it all like converts into Chinese? It will boom into China, right? That is what is happening with all of the companies that are trying to penetrate China. Same thing is with India. Like if you really want to penetrate all of those tier 2 tier 3 cities of India, you just change it into a native thing. Why do you think Kuku FM particularly got so uh, like they performed so underrated in an underrated fashion? They're the underdog of startups right now. I respect Kuku FM for whatever they're doing there.
We research on Kuku FM a lot.
Yeah,
I think
because
Volume also must be doing
the also
some
might be
research on
doing.
that.
Definitely. But we were very focused on being English first, from like, because we had two options. If you're going for other languages, then you have to chuck English. The thing is, the both you go, then you can't handle that type of tech infra.
I think
Like
Plus text
it's
is
the
better in English. Text, regional
yeah,
language text does not work that well.
that is
Audio might
also
work.
yeah audio
Pratlipi,
video
but
might work.
Pratlipi text, but Pratlipi is working purely with text though. They have Malayalam, Hindi, and all that. So the thing is, so when a VC invests in you, right? They are probably not looking at why your startup will probably grow or succeed. They are looking at this fact that what is that individual mode that they can go around and tell all their other VC friends that we have India's only or world's only. Like when you go to YC, they want to brag about we have world's only kind of apps. In India, they want to talk about India's only company which is building for XYZ.
I think
Right.
this is the problem that I'm always trying to focus on. There's this imperative, bold statement. Like whenever it's created in India, it will always be India's first or India only. And when we actually try to compete with the global market, there's no chance for us being there. Why? Because there has never been a use case where we try to test an environment where it's all globalized kind of thing, right?
See, we can definitely grow global, and I feel that's more of like a mindset difference in India, because people have never approached that let's create a product that's global first. Okay, but at the same time, VCs are also seeing an insane demand that I mean, they say so they have theses, right? All VCs have theses. Sometimes you go pitch to a VC, they'll listen to your entire pitch, but before the meeting itself, they would have made their mind that we are not going to invest in them because they don't meet our thesis. Okay, they're just sitting for YOLO, just waiting to assume that you're making 1 million ARR just to hear that. If you're not, you're already done. From there, the VC will start sleeping when you're
I
pitching.
think that's a very rad way to encourage and disencourage founders. Don't you think? Like that's a very malpractice kind of stuff where you like, even though you're being very pragmatic and very practical with your approach, but this is a very lucid thing to actually portray in front of all of the founders, because you don't know what kind of background they have, right?
Thesis, yeah, like for example, certain companies will be very creator economy first, but it's creator economy in Web3. Okay, so they will listen to creator economy startups also, but if you're doing really exceptionally well, they may not want to miss out on you. Okay, but at the same time, if you're a Web3 creator economy company, probably much higher chance of getting funded.
Why
Because that's
is
in
that?
their, because no, if that's in their
They can
thesis.
talk about it.
See, the thing is, VCs always want a company which is so unique. For example, Saurabh knew a guy. So these guys are funded by 100x or something. I'm not sure, but yeah. So one of their founders had made another app. Okay, and they have like some 50-60K downloads in like a few months, like in 2-3 months they got. Okay, like that is a product which actually went into market and just got PMF. But the problem is VCs don't want to invest because it's a news app and it has nothing different from any other news app. Nothing different in sense like, again, it's news, you have this, that. Now they want to work on something like independent journalism and those things, which makes it unique. Okay, a regional journalism, those kind of things. But at the end of the day, because you might be getting crazy downloads, you're getting traction also. But VCs don't want, because what they'll say, we hired a company like in short. They don't want that.
Yeah.
They like, for example, volume positions itself as the only place where you can make interactive and visual mobile first publication. Okay. In that space, if you position the wordings exactly like that, there is no, we have competitors in other publication, but no one is making interactive visual publications, especially on mobile first devices. Right. Similarly, when it comes to Pratlipi is like Wattpad, but Wattpad only for regional content. Who else is there in the regional space? Right. Who is catering to tier 2, tier 3 cities in India? Nobody else. You have one person who can become monopoly. Kuku FM. You have Blinkist, but Blinkist may come for English, so they might take India's top 5% or 3% or whatever. But you have now tier 2, tier 3 might have much lesser buying power. But the fact that you can be, just by choosing another language in India, you can be kings in the play. The fact that you'll be monopoly. They want to put in a money where they want to say that this is India's only, at least in a 5-year span, they can say this company has no competitors to worry about, or this company is the king over there. If even if you're getting amazing traction, you may not be VC fundable because you just don't have that very clear, distinct moat that can create a monopoly from you. And that is what creates your valuation jump, right?
Are Indian VCs more towards like what kind of a mix is this? So what I've learned is that Indian VCs are very particular about safety. Okay, they want to like they come from that safety survival wala jo Indian like base mentality सबकी रहती है थोड़ी सी. It's not like just go create and just do something different, like, but उसके साथ में उनका ये भी है कि they want something different, but they want a very good safety barrier. So something like, why did IITs वाले founders get more funding? Because like they have precedence की यार इन्होंने show किया हुआ है, कुछ proof of work है, and then तो ये
but
दोनों
sometimes if you have
combination अजीब नहीं है.
but if you have traction, sometimes that IIT thing just triumphs your proof of work, because traction is probably a bigger proof of work than IIT.
Again, so sometimes you don't even have traction, but your idea is extremely unique, and idea that thing that what you're building, what you're executing on, can actually change things for the better. And I've had some friends who have had, like, they've almost built the product, but they needed more money for the prototype, and they weren't funded enough for those things.
Okay, so definitely you need to, only a very tiny percentage of founders in India get at a very pre-seed, pre-product stage money. Okay, but that's not mainly because of safety. It's just
viable to them, like on the other side of the park.
Like they want at least some level of product. That is the only proof of work you have, right? If you're
But
not,
I think,
if you're from
there's a barrier to it as well. Like, I think the way you're putting it on, it's very centric to the Indian consumers, right? And as we know, Indian consumers are the spoiled consumers of like any kind of regression.
They want premium and free.
Exactly. And right now, just because the times are changing right now, vanity is not the only metric that will help you capitalize your idea, right? And the way you are thinking of it, like the way you both explained out of it, I think it's more on the status quo part rather than the actual implementation of something you're trying to do very differently. Because if you go to any VC, so I've never been into the table exchange format, right? Like in front of a VC. But the way I can see it, VC, like a venture capitalist, will only trust and believe in your vision, your idea, if you have that kind of backing with you, either some of the soft skills or maybe something on your hand in a data format or something research based, there has to be that kind of tag on which that VC can board your ship, right?
Hmm.
It's
Mhm.
very delusional to actually go and say, "Ki, look, I'm thinking
So
this
why is that
is
different in other countries? Israel,
See,
Singapore.
so
one, there's much more money, firstly, like free money flowing
yeah,
in other country. And
there.
that, I mean, like in Dubai, like I kind of did some of my studies in Saudi Arabia, and I just know how much money is there flying. Like this seed round, which I want to raise, right? If I had a lot of Arab friends, I know I can ask
Habibi,
10
I
of
don't
their
know if it's
dads.
like a
Dude, I
good
can
thing
just
to
tell
say or not.
10 of their dads saying, I want to raise 4-5 crores, and they'll just all sit together and be like, chill, you want 4-5 crores? No, we'll all pool in. Like, it's that cheap. I mean, like 4-5 crores won't be a big deal for them. Like, that is not a
So
big
it's
deal. That much
better
free
to raise
money
from
just
other
want.
countries.
Why do you
Yeah.
think people go and
I mean,
register in
I
Singapore?
mean,
Because that gives
it
the
is,
flexibility, right? I think that's one of the reasons why they register in Singapore, even though they're like their compliance is a little bit eased according to in comparison to
Um,
India. But uh,
but is this the reason? I don't think so.
are you
Like,
like let's
about
raise outside
no,
and
no, no.
let's see what
I
goes.
don't think Singapore and all is to raise foreign investment. But I'll tell you what companies normally do. They register Delaware, and then they register one in in a
Singapore.
place like Singapore and all. Because one, these US investors, very
You
easy to. It's just the fact that if an Indian investors transfer to lead the round, is just so much easier for you than a foreign investor
Yeah,
leading. You can find foreign co-investors, but leading the round, there's so many more compliances for them to lead your round, right? You can get them as a co-investor, definitely, if the lead
right.
investor, if you have a lead investor from India or something. But for a foreign, because that's the main reason why YC, if you get selected, you have to register your company in
In
US, or at
US,
least
yeah.
a branch of your company, which could be probably owned by your main company itself. But you have to register a branch which acts as the US's operating entity, so that you can get funded. Because otherwise, doing due diligence for like 12 people from 12 separate countries is just a
it's
VC
very
just cannot
difficult.
do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
think there's one more issue that I think dwells in our generation right now, which is the idealistic approach towards funding in startups in the
It's
initial.
this recession is nice, dude. You know why? Because that idle, because last year was an anomaly in the startup world.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And in
And
fact,
the repercussions has been
these
very.
companies in the next 12 to 18 months have to start showing significant uh not PM, yeah, not even just PMF. They have to show PMF because they've raised too much of money. Okay, like they've raised so much of money that they have to show PMF, because otherwise
Mm.
nobody will fund them after that. I mean,
Yeah,
after the next 12 months, nobody will fund them if you don't show strong PMF. The fact that your users can't live without you kind of PMF.
I think
I
the.
know an app's founder which has 160K users, and they're
Mhm.
extremely active. App is working great. They got no way to monetize because this is a community-based app. People are coming for stock market communities and all, and it's working very well. It's not a very different product, like it's something like stock only. And but still, like they've got no way to monetize over it.
But do they have like a good product market fit? Like,
Yeah,
you can talk about growth if money is going into growth and they're growing, but they have a product market fit, right?
yeah, they do.
Proper.
But still, then obviously they're not getting
Then,
funds. At least
then,
right now, they're trying to survive, but they are focusing on getting money as soon as possible, like from users, so that they can actually do something about it, because they've spent it so much on marketing. You see their ads all around on Instagram all the time.
Variku.
And नहीं भाई अच्छा नहीं चल थोड़ा सा I
see,
want to like we have less time now. I want to
by the way,
Yes,
how
man.
ask.
long do OMT podcasts go for?
We don't know.
We just show like the
Flow
constant
with the
thought
double W.
flow. Yeah.
Okay. So
Marketing guys. Marketing 101.
I wanted to ask you, Jonah, when when you guys thought of Volume is a reading app right now, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for the readers. Um, with the attention spans decreasing, and I can like certify that I can't read things on screen unless
Mm-hmm.
I'm being extremely intentional. And sometimes I like once a week or twice a week I'm intentional with email, so I read all my emails, all the email newsletters. But other than that, I don't read. I can't
Mm-hmm.
read. Like, it just does not feel right to me. uh,
Mm-hmm.
and when there's less of effort and higher efficiency, I can watch reels which is
Mm-hmm.
good, like high quality reels, because now my reels are good. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how the algorithm has adjusted. And I can watch YouTube videos, long YouTube videos,
Mm-hmm.
and I can just sit back, watch on my TV. So what do you think about reading now on digital platforms? um, is this a very segmented market? uh, can mass behavior be changed back to reading? What do you think
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
about this?
Okay, so when In Shorts came out, right? There were people before who were reading Times of India or whichever was their favorite news service before In Shorts came out. In Shorts didn't come out for people who read news. In fact, people who read news hate In Shorts. Someone who reads something like Times of India says yuck to In
Yep,
Shorts.
I don't like
But
that either.
yeah, yeah. But the fact that all my friends who don't read news keep sharing cricket news and all this from In Shorts. The fact that
Yeah.
In Shorts, just by their form factor, could penetrate an audience not of people who are avid news readers, but people who don't read news, right? Because everybody wants to stay updated, but nobody wants to take the effort, right? When it comes to reading, like you're right. So I don't think one that attention spans are decreasing as a human race because nothing is changing from a biology POV. But I feel every form factor has a level of attention span that it creates. Your phones by design, for example, your phone keeps having this push notification, for example, which keeps you in that loop of jumping from apps to app. It is by design of how phones were made. Like ever since Jobs came out with that 2007 model, it's still gone till time till date. And that by design is a short format, not short format. It's designed to keep jumping from one place to another. It's it's meant to keep you distracted. Your phone's experience, right? So our
Yeah.
when we go for reading at Volume, we are not looking for hardcore readers. Or I mean, it's not like we're not looking for, but we just don't think that our ideal audience are going to be insanely hardcore readers. But people, like, if you look at most of Volume's content, they're very infotainment kind of content rather than any kind of reading content,
Hmm.
right? So we look for Volume like a place for people to quench their curiosity, but then Google also is a place to quench your curiosity, right? Why would you come to Volume? But the fact that on Google you need to know what you have to search for, but Volume
Yeah,
curates what would probably
you'd like
light
something.
up your curiosity, kind of like how you'd go to Amazon and Cred Store doesn't have a search button, right? Because you don't know what you want to buy, but you just look through it because there are interesting products there. That level
I
of
think something
curation.
there's this particular performance is also practiced in Netflix because
Mhm,
you don't know what you're searching for, but you're searching for something,
mhm,
right? Something that you try to imitate. So the question that Aryan asked about the upliftment or change in human behavior regarding the attention span and like the content consumption proportional to the attention span right now. What you think? Like, I is your app trying
mhm,
to be that kind of informational cult where it changes the human behavior into like reducing the attention spans and consumption becomes great? But because this happened with TikTok, no
mhm,
other company till it had like Vine was that one conceptual thing. The breakdown was coming soon, but
mhm,
TikTok was the one who actually globalized it on a very large scale and in a very fast manner. Like the scaling of that company was very fast,
Very
and it
mhm,
changed. I love TikTok from a startup point of view. Why? Because it was a
very good product.
transcendental product in human behavior, like changing the
mhm,
human behavior. No one ever thought that I could consume content, become intelligent, know a lot about stuff and the world in just 30 to 60 seconds. Right.
Or
So
just watch people dance
it-
and watch the world burn.
yeah, I mean, there are different mediums to do that. Like now, like even YouTube offers that 30-second video, right? Not talking about shorts. A particular video is also 30 seconds. But changing of the format, changing of the consumption layout, the whole skeleton, the intentional effort that you put of thumb scrolling and infinite scrolling, and the discover page that gives you all sort of new things that you never imagined is some other corner, like other corner of the world. I phenomenally love TikTok because of that particular factor, because even though they were not intending to change the course of behavior, but they did,
See,
unintentionally or intentionally. So what do you think is this volume onto that path where they are going to give that kind of, just because now on every app people try to find that thing, like any entertainment app, people need to have that. They're searching, they're thirsty for that particular form of content, which is like shorts or reels or something like that. Moj, Chingari, or kaun se Takatak, something like that.
So when Jonah and I had a chat for the first time, Jonah said that we wanted to become something different. I don't know what he said, but now we're becoming a TikTok for text content.
Okay. I told them we wanted to be a Netflix for content, but we ended up becoming a TikTok for
TikTok.
content.
And that's perfect.
There's no
And that's
problem
perfect.
with that.
Actually, it actually works.
It actually works.
because when we went with the Netflix for readers approach, we went for long form content, which is amazing. But again, market size is much smaller. Okay, but a more loyal market base than people who would actually consume short form content.
I love those.
I'll be that.
Exactly. I love those people who are very much niche down to stuff, because you're very intentional with what you're using, right? If I want to watch a documentary, I won't go on Netflix or Hotstar. I'll go on Discovery Plus, because I know exactly what I'm going to get. I think that is the problem with Indian consumers, right? They want everything under one app. Then that changes the whole.
There's a problem
scenario.
also. The thing is, if you want to start as a publication who's a publication or like a studio or an agency, these are not startups. Startups have this very inherent quality of being able to scale very fast. Our long form content didn't have that nature to scale fast. It was visual, it was interactive, it was beautiful, but just couldn't scale fast. But our stacks was more of like a model that was created that not only us could create, but anyone else could create stacks, right? And that was highly scalable. So that's why we went for that kind of content. Secondly, like you said, like how TikTok changed the behavior and stuff, right? For us, the whole idea is revolved around this fact that accepting the fact that on mobile your behavior is different. You have a very distractive behavior on phones, and how do you make reading work on phones, right? So that is the direction which you're going for, and definitely things will change, and we'll be playing around with a lot of things, but that is the core, this thing, that understanding that your behavior on mobiles are different, and how do you get people to read on mobile phones. So finding answers to this mystery will give us better answers to craft volume into a better experience for our end users. So we have this mystery which is probably not solved.
You're actually doing that.
Yeah, but it's still not a solved mystery, because if it was a solved mystery, we have hit PMS, right? So it's an unsolved mystery which we are getting better and better after every time. Like per update, we're seeing very good jumps and improvements in our DAUs, MAUs, and stuff. So
and
there
comments
is something
on our stack.
Definitely. Hey, by the way, do you know one more stack is coming up?
Which stack?
Marvel Comics, just be aware.
Marvel still rules, bro.
Dude, wait
so,
until the Justice League arrives. Hold your applause until after.
Also, comic content is coming on volume, right?
Huh?
Comics are coming on volume.
Comics not in our near future. So the thing is, our long-term plans definitely have that, but not our GTM, like our next 6 to 12 months. Because the thing is, when you call
I'll wait
yourself
for it. I
when
wait
you
for
call
it.
yourself as a publication platform, right? You can do
Yeah.
any kind of publication, but the fact
Yeah.
that you know just skew your vision, and like how Peter Thiel says, grow in concentric circles. So the first concentric circle where you are small, you can establish an identity over there. So we want to
Right.
go for pure entertainment content and startups, leadership, um,
Hmm.
entrepreneurship, those kind of first level of concentric circle. Then we can go for a bigger circle, because when it comes to comics, or what do you say, comics or entertainment based content, right? We have people who are coming to the platform for fun, right? Sometimes their intent is comparatively lower, unless we have a full series like system and someone is writing a full series and all that. Again, to get those kind of writers require you know good amount of money to be put into production for such kind of content.
Right.
So if you don't plan it at the right time, definitely I know comics will work, because I have been an avid comic fan. You create a good story, you'll be hooked. But the timing is important when it comes, and when we can actually implement it as a company.
Yeah,
And
then
when
it
that
becomes like,
recall does not get screwed for
Yep.
the app.
See,
yeah,
we see this stack, right, is a very is a very flexible concept. For example, right now how stack works, it kind of works like a blog, right? Like you keep posting stuff, like a blog, you have all your content listed down. But now we are going to have something called a creator studio coming up, where you can legit write text on your phone and create beautiful looking carousels. Like all you have to do is just put text, okay,
Right.
and a carousel gets generated. You choose your theme and carousel is done. Then you can make tiny tweaks and stuff. So now, since text is also taken and it's not just images, we could create something called a stack, which has a property of a newsletter. So for example, you'll be making a stack, but at the same time, while it's on volume, a version of it will also go into your mailbox.
Right.
Another version of it could be a structured stack, where like for example, in Aryan stack, I can come and read anything, right? Like a blog. But in a
yeah,
structured stack, it will be structured like a book. There'll be like
Module.
how you'd go from bottom
epilogue
to
to chapter one.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, from the oldest to the latest, you'll go in that
Hmm.
order, because that is something that would work for. So we have this idea of micro courses, so gamification 101.
Mm.
So you cannot start gamification 101 from last, right? So you can learn all the principles of gamification in 30 minutes, like from
Right.
all the different sources that are out there, basics, the PBL
We're doing
triad.
that with the investing modules. It's
Yeah,
something
so
like Zero the Varsity, but in audio form and very like oversimplified.
then we have something called keynotes, which is basically uh let's say Jack Dorsey has so many interviews, he has written a lot of blog posts, this that there are a lot of things where he has actually given out his insight, right? So in let's say keynotes, episode 1 is Jack Dorsey. We'll basically summarize all his insights into, let's say, 18 posts in a stack. So basically stuff that you'll need to sit for 3-hour podcast, and you'll have to spend at least 4 to 5 days to actually get all his content from the internet, will all be compressed to 18 posts. Definitely that doesn't justify for the content, but the fact that sometimes from a 2-hour conversation you can probably pull out uh, 15 to 16 or 20 insights.
Okay.
So for someone who wants to consume insights fast, then definitely that we want to be more of a starter for you to be curious, so that
Mhm.
you actually deep dive into other platforms to go deeper into it.
Right.
But the fact that you can get learnings from someone else in a very quick format, so that's keynote. So again, all of these are coming in a more
So
on the
I have a
premium.
I have a problem statement. So when you said that you're not looking for a particular reader, matlab that's not most of your audience. Like a normal person
For an
who
everyday novel kind of reader, yeah.
हाँ. So when you're saying that, so so why does TikTok's refresh works is because it's very less intentional. Like I'm just opening
Mm.
the app because I don't intentional in the sense that I don't intend to get that kind of thing. I intend to get surprised every time. So that's my intention. That's why I'm opening. When I'm opening and suppose I'm opening a Kindle app or a Kindle, my intent is to read for a very long time. Okay,
Mhm.
very long time means 10 to 20 minutes, 30 minutes at least. When
Mhm.
I'm going on volume
Mhm.
and my intent is to read,
Mhm.
okay, usually or get surprised in the sense that some kind of curiosity is driven, some new thing I learn. But when
Mhm.
I read one story
Mhm.
and I feel like it's unfinished, because my intention, because the way our mind has been trained is, here reading jab kar rahe ho na, to it has to be long. बट वीडियो
Mhm.
में जब मैं इंटेंशनल नहीं हो रहा तो इट्स लाइक ओके, मैं बस स्क्रॉल करते रहो टिकटॉक जैसे या रील्स जैसे.
Mhm.
जब मैं यूट्यूब पे भी जाता हूँ, सेम इंटेंशन मेरी. व्हेन आई एम वाचिंग अ वीडियो एंड इफ इट्स नॉट लॉन्ग इनफ एंड लाइक
Mhm.
इट कैन कीप मी थ्रू इट, मुझे वो इफेक्ट नहीं मिलता. So that's a,
Mhm.
that I think that's a problem statement you guys are approaching, and you're approaching well with this module thing, because
Mhm.
वो continuity बहुत important है. And I've
Mhm.
seen that in my behavior, on volume, that and I read volume on my father's phone, iPhone.
Mhm.
So that actually it is much better than Android. I don't know why. It's
Yeah,
just,
it is.
it just looks
The
better.
It,
And
bias
it's
of
it, it,
the
it, it,
the
biasness
bias,
of premiumness.
but
it's
it
because
is,
it's
it
because
There's
is
most
a
of
actually good on
our
my phone as well. It's a OnePlus, and the
Chinese one.
combination, it's हाँ, ठीक है.
it's
Made
good
in
on
India.
OnePlus.
It's very good on this one, not other
Okay.
OnePlus. It's good on this one because this has haptic sensor,
Uh-huh.
Mm.
and it just creates that iPhone kind of experience.
You know,
Mhm.
there's a
The thing is,
cliche.
we optimize for iPhone because one, I am seeing the test flight on my device. The so Saurabh, my CTO, has an Android phone. But the thing is, at the end of the day, when we go for these minor tweaks, so I tell Saurabh, like, give me a front end voice for like 1 hour to me, like before we finalize on everything, because I want to
Mm.
get on a call, and in the call itself, we directly correct things. Okay, we'll be like, the padding doesn't look good, no, add two more on the left, refresh the page. Okay, add two more on the left, little more, remove padding and check. Wow, this looks good. Cool, let's go to the next part. And we just fix the problems on the go itself before our shipping day starts coming. So we can, that is basically, we call it polishing. Okay, our
Yeah.
polishing days. So that in 1-2 hours, we kind of perfect the app from a dev version to a very production ready version. So that time I am looking on my iPhone. Ali, who's our front end developer, he's also looking it from a Mac and iPhone. So at the end, everyone looking it from iPhone. Then we release it, and then some Android boys and Discord will be like, "Guys, my heart button is getting cut out." Which Android do you test?
So many of them.
Don't make it for Android. I
That's
mean,
what
yeah,
that's what
that
Jonah
is
does.
that is what drove the success of, I mean, the early success of Clubhouse.
Clubhouse. But they
Yeah.
started from US, a country which has a big chunk of iPhone users. In India, right, the amount of people who are using iPhone on volume, I think 98% of the people are using it on Android. It's just that India's
Yeah.
population just has that. Like, think about it. Even the top 2 to 3% in India, who are people who can probably own an iPhone, also have Android phones. Okay,
Yeah. I mean,
so now
that is where my all vision disparity happens. Like, okay, I want to create that premium shit and I'll do this
But
and that. Why? Because I'm
Clubhouse was a very good answer to you, Vivan, because initially when it was given to rich kids, because they have an iPhone and they spoke, it was exactly like TikTok but for the rich. It became TikTok but for the rich. And I think this was Prakhar tweeted this out when TikTok was Clubhouse was going on, that you think poor Indians on TikTok are cringe, just listen to this. So
but yeah,
it
I
was,
could like partially agree on that. But
it just
uh
tells you about the hooks of
yeah,
premiumness.
yeah.
There's no
It's
premium.
more of a, so it's like a wannabe thing, right? And you know how I hate shallow people. And when I went on Clubhouse and when I saw the scenario, I was like, nope, this is not for me. This particular thing, the exclusivity, the invite thing.
And we
Okay,
met
it's
on
a great
Clubhouse, like properly interacted on Clubhouse.
properly interacted. Yeah, that's the
So,
most ironical thing that
yeah.
happened in my
But
like.
those sessions were awesome. Mm.
It was
And
no,
very deep
the
Clubhouse
the
had
discussion.
some
session was
really
better
great
than
sections.
Twitter session का ना थोड़ा सा distractive रहता experience. That session was very, you were into that.
Focused.
हाँ, it was a very, maybe Jonah, you can try something.
What?
Volume में क्या था बोलेगा भाई फीचर अपडेट नहीं करेंगे हम but like what are the stats, like how many users do you have on Android, like what is the is iOS usage more than Android on your app?
No. It's Android users.
Android
In
users.
India,
मैंने बोला there's a
in
few
India, major. So if we didn't release an iOS app, also no different. The only reason why we can run, okay, so our iOS major user base comes from outside India because we release global, right?
हाँ जी.
It comes from, yeah. So we have like easily 1K plus people from US. Then we have people
You can
from
scale
Europe.
so easily, yaar.
We have people from
that is what I'm
Europe. We
thinking.
have, in fact, you go check our streak. Number one, the guy is not Indian. His name is called
Yeah.
Matt Day, and he's an American guy. Like
That's
he tagged us
Abhivan
recently.
with the VPN.
I think whenever we talk about this double-edged sword of iOS and Android, iPhone, and any other phone, regardless of the brand, how do you make the distinction? Like, can you look at an Android phone and tell me what particular Android phone it is from a distance? But when I show you an iPhone from a distance, you will know exactly what phone it is. That kind of experience that you can create through marketing, advertisement, through like word of mouth and stuff, that's very difficult. And that's
Carl Pai has been the only one who did it twice.
I think nahi,
OnePlus was recognizable. Nothing is there. I saw someone on Nothing phone that day, and like I could recognize that phone straight away.
I'll tell you something. OnePlus, I mean, Nothing is definitely recognizable. So I was talking with my with Saurav a few days back, and so I was like, so you would have seen all mockups on Volume's website as an iPhone. So I told him, okay, the only reason why it's an iPhone is because that's the only device in the world that I can put in front of my dad, and my dad also will say, you know what, this is an iPhone. Okay. But the problem with OnePlus, right? Like Saurav was like, OnePlus, a few cultists and people who know about the phone world will know it's a Nothing phone. OnePlus or nothing phone. OnePlus, even my dad, when recently my brother wanted to buy, he was like, hey, isn't it some local Chinese company? And then my brother was like, no, it's a flagship phone, this, that.
You should listen to this. Is it what Chinese something?
It's an Indian, this one is an Indian phone. इसके बाद नहीं लूंगा अब मैं. काल पे ने छोड़ दिया, अब मैं नहीं ले रहा.
That is what I'm saying, right? The double-edged sword. Because see, when I see, I have always been an engineering product guy, right? So I am always going to go for the experience part, because that is how I perceive any kind of product. The touch, the feel, the experience, the intuitiveness of any kind of app or the product. There's a very great still from the film Steve Jobs, where it says that we're working on a Macintosh project. So this has to work as an appliance. You don't need a manual for an appliance, right? You take a fridge out of the box, you unbox it, you take out a microwave, you take out any kind of blender, and you just know exactly how to use it. There's no manual required for it. There's no instructions, or there's no online consultant specialist to help you use that product, right? It's all about the experience and the recall that you have. You listen to the voice. A refrigerator, what does that do? It has a door, it opens, it cools stuff, right? Like that's the basic functionality. Any kind of the double-edged thing that I'm saying, like the iOS and the Android thing, the unraveling of any kind of product on these platforms is distinctive, and that's what makes all the difference. I'll tell you, you use an Android, right? You download any app, the downloading buffer, the installing buffer, and the usage experience has such a lag. Like if you download a very big app, it will take quite some time, because it's like loading all the all the files and folders. Have you downloaded Asphalt 9? Download Asphalt 9 and then we'll talk. It's a 2.9 gigs of file, right?
Do a live run, because I never had a problem.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the the experience thing that I'm talking about. Whenever you
Okay.
download that kind of, yeah, download it. The moment we cut it,
You
like
get that
we shut down the.
extra. You have that extra file
Let
to
him
download.
Let him download. I'll just give him the
Wait.
example what I'm trying to make.
I'll
You download
just-
any big file. The only experience thing that I'm talking about is this unveiling. If you forget that there's a big file and you put it on download, you'll forget that there was an app that you downloaded, which you'll find like 1-2 weeks later when you're actually scrolling and like optimizing the phone. The thing with iOS changes because iOS is more of a magic show with their apps, because if you download any app, first though it will come in your app library, right? So it already is in the motion where it's like like ticking a clock. So it already intrigued you. Wait for the app to load, and the experience of seamlessness, like there's no noise between it. You download an app, I love the way that nanoparticle download happens. Like first the outline will come, then there's a thing where it sketches a map into it. If you've seen how Apple icon downloads itself, there will be a
13% download rate.
give it some time. The thing, we will end the episode
That's
and
it.
it won't get downloaded. Why? Because there's an extra 1 GB file that needs to be downloaded for it.
That's
And if I download it for Apple, it will just download it in all of the format. There has to be no noise between it. If you had an Apple product, right? If you download, you can see there's a like soften edges box will come, then there will be a graph that arises, then the icon shape comes, then the clock comes, and it downloads and it gives you the full experience. Experience is something that actually is the token that plays a very great a great role in the loyalty of any kind of user.
still
When
not
it
worth the price. Still not
maybe, but I'll tell you something. Another place where this experience thing plays is, you've tried pairing an AirPod with an iPhone. It's just magic. Like, I've never seen something like earphones pairing so seamlessly. Like the fact that the AirPod is there on the Mac, it shows AirPods nearby. You can put it in your ear.
Yeah.
You get a phone call and you press OK on your phone call, and if your AirPod is there, but you're listening to it from Mac. The moment you press OK, it shifts from your Mac to your phone, and then the audio starts playing. After the call is done, it connects it back. The moment you open your case card, this top right, a drawer opens from your Mac. From your iPhone, which says how much battery percentage and all is there.
Yeah.
The moment, and there is no physical way to open this drawer from your device. You have
Now
to
it
open
is.
it. Yeah,
Now
you
in
close
iOS
it,
16.
and then it pops down. So that level of integration, and the fact that you have to never connect it from Bluetooth, and because it has an extra additional chip just to make sure that it gets connected in a split second the moment it is taken out of the case. But yeah, still doesn't justify the price.
I mean, see, I'll tell you, just because they're becoming that
AirPods.
kind of
I use this with an Android. Okay.
the audio quality. Like I have never had an unmatched audio quality. You can record with this particular like earpods, and it is going to be a better audio quality than any condenser mic. I can bet you on that. That is
Then why
how
are you
sophisticated.
using one?
I'm using my Fearless innovation. Don't worry. The audio experience is great. I would sound very biased, even though I'm not. Why? Because I have weighed on both the angles. That way I
That
can
is
state it
true.
very strongly, right?
See, it's all about
And
allocation.
the
Like, what do
problem.
you allocate money for?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
since I'm into financial literacy wala scene, I can tell you that why would I allocate money for a Mac or an iMac or an iPad and not an iPhone? Like, it doesn't make sense. That why won't I try to be in the ecosystem which I already own? So the scene is simple, that for a phone that I hardly use in the day, I use my Mac all day or my iPad. Why would I actually pay so much for it? But yeah, if I ever, like, my father uses phone all day and he needs safety stocks and all, and his primary device is not a laptop, it's his phone, so it just makes sense.
I like in the conclusive manner, I feel very pity for this one product that I, even though I might sound very hypocritic, I vouched for it,
Theranos.
literally.
We work.
I'm talking about Microsoft Lumia.
I
I'm
thought he
talking
was
about
talking
the
about
Windows.
It wasn't Microsoft Lumia first of all. It was
It is
Nokia
Nokia
Lumia.
Lumia.
ठीक है,
Yeah, yeah.
Microsoft क्यों बोल रहा है भाई?
Microsoft.
Because I want to make you remember who you are. Anyways, I really vouched for that product. I felt
No,
कि
no, no.
Windows Phone.
Even I vouched for it in its time, but no.
Yeah. But then
Go
I
on.
saw the downfall and I was like, okay, fuck it. But when it came,
But it
I
was
saw that
beautiful.
kind of wave where
Should I do a thread on this? Should I do?
Dude,
I think I should.
dude, there's a company that is already doing a thread on Windows Phone.
You're doing a Windows Phone now. I'm doing on Lumia. The downfall of Nokia Lumia.
What is the difference between a Windows Phone and a Lumia?
It was called Windows Phone later. ठीक है, और मैंने तब लेना बंद कर दिया था जैसे ही उन्होंने Nokia हटा के Microsoft कर दिया.
But you know, I felt that this was something that is going to like give a jolt in the market of monopolies like Android and
it did for a while. It did for a while.
it did,
was very
but it
successful.
failed. You know why? It failed because of the what's the word? Desperate attempt to bring people on board. There was not many apps like Android or iOS for you know Windows Store and stuff. People like developers were not even interested in having that tile shaped thing, but it was so accessible. Like if you see it from a design thinking perspective, imagine now you need that kind of stuff where you know like you have all the tiles in front of you, you can click and interact with.
That tiles was beautiful.
And live tiles, it was live tiles. I love the transition that they used to have the block kind of thing, right? You know, it's like a cube happening all around.
Do you remember that people section where
Yeah.
all your social medias came in? Wow, beautiful.
And imagine
text
this was the replica of Windows 8 on a phone. Like Windows 8 was also working in the same fashion like on a phone. So even though just because we love, like my IQ loves to be playing with grifter genre, there's a whole science behind why this debacle happened. But the fact that desperately trying to change the human behavior caused them to fail, the company shut down, the company got acquired, and then it shut down in another mammoth company. It is very evident. The experience.
Wait, one doubt. Did they try to change behavior, or was their fall a bigger factor due to the late timing? Because I'll tell you, Steve Ballmer, when he was asked about iPhone, there is even a video that's so iconic where he's just sitting and laughing on his chair, and he's like, "Have you even seen an iPhone?" And he was like, "Do you know the Palm Top? Windows came up with Palm Top 2 years before iPhone. What are you talking about? iPhone is a joke. It won't succeed." That same attitude Nokia had when Android came out. Everybody was like, Nokia, go to Android. They were like, no, we have Symbian. We are not going to go. Both had that feeling that, you know, we have made the best thing. Others all who are coming are just like jokes who are just coming into the industry. We have nothing to worry about. That ego which both of these companies, like I just feel like both of them had, you know, like if I look at a company like a Persona, right? Both of them had that same ego problem through which both of them crashed.
But more than that,
then
I
both
think,
ego brothers partnered up also, more ego and crashed.
So is like Apple के पास भी तो वो था, but Apple was more open to letting creators do what they want to create. They
were stubborn with that. They were stubborn with that. And that is what
very stubborn. Even today, Apple is very stubborn. Ask a developer. My developers all, you know, they when they have to do any Apple developer work, no, they just say F and start, because Android just made it so easy. You know, Android, everything is easy from the payment to getting started. No, everything is easy.
No, not in that sense. I mean, isn't the main reason Lumia failed was that not enough apps were available?
Yeah. But that is not because of developer experience. The developer experience was very good. Like it was all integrated into Microsoft's Visual Studio and stuff.
Why didn't people want to make apps for Lumia?
Because I'll tell you, when they came, right, Android and iOS had taken like this big chunk of the market share, that they were just 1% or something. With all the money that is pooled in, they just could penetrate into 2.5 to 3% of the market. Exactly. They were so late into the market.
Part of that market.
Huh?
I had Lumia for a very long time.
Even I also had Lumia for a long time. Dude, Lumia, I was
two versions.
I supported Lumia so much that I bought Lumia. I told my mom also to buy Lumia. I supported that brand so much.
I had like 520, 530, 920.
But after
so-
using Lumia for so long, you'll realize that YouTube's official app is not there. Instagram's official
You
app
know
is
what
not there.
happened? I'll
Instagram
tell
made
you.
an app but stopped developing for it because they
Yeah.
were like, why should we develop for 2% market share? Like when there's big chunks of market share lying out there, like why should we? If they came when iOS and Android came, right? Microsoft would have easily won the game because Microsoft had such a big brand in OS. Like people, it was either it was Mac and Windows, and in fact, it was always Windows actually. Like in our childhood, so if you think Macs weren't just lying down everywhere around, at
डब्बा
least
वाला
in
कंप्यूटर
a
याद करो तो Windows ही आता है.
Windows
There's
XP
no.
wallpaper was the most like that is a part of our
It
childhood.
became an NFT, right? It's got sold for some great millions
Dude, every
dollars.
crap is becoming an NFT.
Your DP was
And
Dude,
a
Your
screenshot
DP
of it.
was
screenshotted NFT.
But you
You
know,
wait, once Twitter Blue comes, that screenshotted NFT is gonna come in hexagon. I put the screenshotted NFT and put it on OpenSea, and now
that for 68 ETH.
my screenshotted NFT is now an NFT.
nice
It's on
screenshotted
OpenSea.
NFT. My white DP is going to be like the epitome of premiumness. Don't worry. But the main reason why people never migrated to Windows, particularly the Windows environment, it was because of they already saw all kind of tools that were becoming cross-platform, but the cross-platform options were only limited to iOS to Android or Android to iOS. You create a code base on one of the platforms, and then you click a button and it changes for iOS or vice versa.
No. Back then, there was nothing. So React was the first thing that came up with this. That too in 2014, they just came up with it. Before that, you had stuff like Ionic, which basically wrapped your entire
I'm talking
thing.
about that.
Facebook,
that is the only
Facebook.
It was
with that.
with React, yeah. Ionic was something where you create an entire web app, but it wraps it inside like a web view kind of thing, and then packages
that is
it
what was
as
happening right back then. Why? Because iPad was also trying to like penetrate with a different kind of app store. So what they did using Ionic's cross-platform framework, they made a code base for like web and they converted into iOS and Android, right? So this kind of there were many factors. We don't have any particular specific thing why this didn't work. It was like a mass acceptance thing. Like there has to be an adaptation of whatever is coming in your way. There's an app right now which is called Be Real. There's no adaptation to it. It's just a hype. I'll tell you why.
Yep.
I have
What's
tens
that?
and thousands of reasons why Be Real app will fail in this current times. Why? Because it is not a purpose-driven app. It is a cost-driven app. And any
Be Real है
cost-driven
क्या?
app.
What is that?
Jonah just downloaded Be Real. Batao Jonah. What is Be Real?
Okay, so Cold Fusion has a full documentary on Be Real, by the way. So that's why I downloaded it. So Be Real is basically, where all Instagram and all these places are all about, filtered photos and, stuff which you have saved, edited and all that. What you do in Be Real is every day one notification will come where you have to post a pic. Only if you post a pic, then you can see all of your friends' pics which they have also posted. So it opens it opens your back and front camera. So whatever you put in front of you, you have to show your face also. It's not like anyone posts face in the stuff story which I put. Basically, everybody covers their face and just posts what's in front, just to see what their friends have posted. But I'm seeing more. But I'm seeing more. But the fact that it's really where you are right now, like you can't take anything from your gallery and post it. So
such an irritating app, right? See,
it is irritating. Okay, I first thought this will not work. Okay, and I still think like it will die. The hype will die out. But the fact that when more and more friends of mine started coming into, not friends, like these are more, people who are just curious, try out new apps. As more and more such people came on to Be Real, right? Like you just want to see where they are, what they're doing. And the fact that if you haven't uploaded yours, you can't see theirs. That acts as a trigger. That curiosity becomes that loop to,
but how long can that last?
Exactly. That is what I'm saying.
One day, then next day. So it's
it resets. The effect. He's talking about
this curiosity can last for only some time. Like Facebook had its time. Everybody was curious what
your crush should be in Be Real. Then you'll be a well retaining
audience. See, I'll tell you.
But that's lifetime value of that is also getting lower.
I mean, but you don't
till she finds a new boyfriend.
you don't realize one fact out of these kind of facts that are very social driven. We need to be real and Instagram ka anti banayenge and stuff. There's this one problem because the way you're tamed for the last generation, it's being anonymous than being real. So you would prefer to have an anonymous name, identity, something very different of not who you are on internet, rather than actually being who yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you can't even give them a gamified version of it and then expect to come on that. Like imagine Reddit is doing the same thing. You are very real on Reddit just because you have that kind of anonymity wala
Anonymity.
tag, right? So one of the reasons why, like one of the major reasons why Be Real will fail, because I'll tell you, all of these social media, just because they've prolonged for a really long time, they've tamed everyone's brain into a way where all of the people on the social media, they're insecure. There are so many psychological problems. They're like, there's many problems related to their mental health. They've already struck the chord. Now if you try to change it by giving them a remedy right on the internet, like the anti thing, what do you think what will happen? They'll taste it for a while. There will be a very great Gaussian curve being made on the MAUs, DAUs and stuff. It will fail. Why? Because there's no there's no dopamine effect of being on the internet remains on being real as you are. As I said, a cause driven product will never survive. Why? Because it requires that kind of intentional effort every time you are on that app. But see, because any consumer is a consumer which reacts to the things that they're being served with. No one is very proactive with, yeah, I want it, let it come to me is the trigger. That's why you have a feed. That's why you have an explore page. That's why the way social media is designed, it's not designed in a haywire thing, right? It's like years of research of user segmentation and regression, what kind of human activity is going to happen, and then they subjugate it with what actually is on your feed. The moment you try to give them that kind of antidote, ki, dude, just because you're being affected by this particular XYZ app, we have an antidote for it. No one is going to like do bullshit. I'll tell you, there's a very prime example of it. I don't know if the founder of that particular app is watching us. I hope he watches us.
Are you talking about Hood?
Nay, I'm talking about
Okay,
no,
no.
dude. That's like the most. I never knew ki like Reddit can be
He's
glass
talking about
morphosized.
Now and Me.
Huh?
No, I'm
What
talking
Reddit
about.
being glass mouth is? That app has become textual porn.
It's like, yeah, exactly. What
It's
is
legit textual porn. I'm cheating on my wife right now, so this is happening. So right now I'm
it's,
like, so my wife and my girlfriend know that I'm cheating on each other.
Did you see
This
Now and
is,
Me?
huh?
I'm not talking
Now
about
and
Now and
Me.
Me, by the way. Have you seen the app of Now and Me,
No.
Jonah? No,
Nope.
never see it. This is what Aryan is texting me to say.
मैंने
But
कुछ नहीं बोला. I didn't say anything.
Cool.
I need a check. Okay. We'll cut this out. I'm the editor. I can cut this out.
I'm talking about the founders of WhatsApp. They created an app called Hello app, which was like a
Neeraj.
closed circle of social media, but in a WhatsApp kind of
Funding
environment.
बंद कराएगा तो.
So that was the app that Aryan told me to download. So it is a peer networking social media app where only your peers can interact with you. You have a feed
खत्म
where
हो गया.
your
Tata. Bye bye.
contact period,
Basically, Jonah, it's Instagram, but
your
2000,
contacts.
2009 bourbon का
Yeah,
change
yeah,
होके
yeah,
वो
exactly.
2010 वो वाला type. It's
So
like
it has gone way
just
beyond
your
its time.
contacts, very private, and it's like WhatsApp, Instagram, and WhatsApp mixed into
one.
Okay, but
I
your
think they
network is
use
just people from your
on your
contacts.
contacts.
And
Yeah,
you're posting without likes. There's no validation.
That is too much effort. I don't want. Dude, better than that is if I put all my friends into a group and tell
WhatsApp
them
in a
what.
group, yeah. So they had groups as well, but groups in a very different sense. Like you can't just chat in those groups. These are just.
So wait, isn't this what WhatsApp status? If I keep uploading something on WhatsApp status,
So
doesn't it become the same thing?
WhatsApp was initially trying to be that before Instagram, before Facebook bought it. So they were trying to the exact thesis of Hello app was actually WhatsApp. Like,
exactly
WhatsApp same way tha.
WhatsApp was very clear with what they want to do. It was like, we don't want any kind of gimmick. will just be
They wanted to
plaintive.
become WeChat, na? WeChat.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
Hello app and mix WhatsApp together, na? It becomes WeChat. That's
Mhm.
that's what WeChat is actually. And
And
obviously add elements of Instagram and make it add
after
bit also.
Meta, like after Facebook acquired WhatsApp,
It
it was
changed
like
WhatsApp.
it was like a series of downtrodden things. Like, by
After
the way, I
Facebook
have a
Yeah.
acquired WhatsApp.
yeah, I have a thread on it. You all can read it. Like,
Yes.
so,
Acha,
ठीक है,
it's
there's a
10:22.
yeah. I'm
I have
Yep.
one last thing. Okay, Vivan, you go first. Then
no, I was only saying maybe there's one more thing, and that's our last segment.
Acha.
And then we can wrap it all up.
Yeah, maybe you can do it after this. So since I run a content company and Jonah, you guys start with
IQ.
FinFlow, and IQ is also coming up, which like I own 10% of it. So
Point 0.10 is not 10%.
10%. Yes, 0.10 of one. So
Okay.
Jonah, like you guys started on Instagram, right? What was
Mhm.
the motivation behind it? So like how did you start? Did you ever think यार मैं इसको product बना दूंगा? Yeah, were you even entrepreneurial back then? Like how did it start and when was this when you started Volume Stories?
Okay. Instagram, when I started, I had just put up, first, if you go to the first 3 posts of Volume, it in detail, those are like paragraph captions, which kind of explained my vision of how I wanted to take the reading market forward, or like, and including those theses of what I told you about why reading hasn't changed and all that. But our first product isn't the product which you are seeing today. We had a web version of the product, which again was made really fast and scrapped off also. Not scrapped off, we have it still, but we started Instagram as while we were building the product during buffer, let's just build the audience who will end up being our first users of the product.
How
That was
long
our,
did it take to scale to a level कि हाँ you can just send it out to users?
huh?
How long like how long?
We didn't wait for a user, like 1,000 users also. If we had a product, we would have given it to our users.
नहीं,
So
so like once you basically distribution wala approach, na? You wanted to build distribution first and like along with that you're building
I
product.
didn't think of building distribution first. See,
Okay.
like see, when the development team is working, it's not like we sit empty handed, right? Like,
Right.
or we need at least some amount of users who come initially. Like I don't want to think about getting users after the product is out. At least some amount of users who understand our core vision, or what we are trying to do, and all those kind of thing. And carousels were a good form. Back when we started, one carousel would get us about like 80, I mean 20, 30 followers easily. And like later on, some of them started getting us even 100 followers a day and all, like one carousel. After that, the reels algorithm, the reels came in center, and all that was gone. But that's how we initially grew our page and all that. But we didn't think of it like distribution at first, because for me, the priority was, if I wanted feedback from any amount of user, but most importantly, I wanted my users or my community to understand what we were building, why we
Right.
were building, what is the core ethos between what we were building. The first part of the product which we were building, I kind of showed Vivan like 2 weeks back. Like that was the product which we were building. And that is a project much bigger than the scale of Volume right now. In fact, we even built it. We built the infra for it, but it is not easily scalable. Like that type of content is not easily scalable, because that is the peak of what web development is today. Like that is JS particles and all those kind of things put into a web page. Have you seen like these Apple landing pages? Everything moves as you scroll. Videos, their phone is moving up, down. Every content was going to be like that on Volume.
So something like that I saw on Volume once.
Yeah, we kind
Hey,
of
this is
removed.
like
Yeah.
the best part of this
That was
particular
all a part of
project
our
is
early launch.
the thing that he showcased, right, when we met, the vision that I had for IQ, it was already in front of my eyes. So I was so like on board with the idea that okay, you have to like in no matter what happens, this is that one thing that will elevate everything that we've been working for, that you've been working for, right? Because see, in the end, it's all about, if you're a content company, if you're a design company, what does it comes down in the end? It's about the reading experience. It's about the consumption experience that you give to the users or your, like the consumers that you have. And the moment you tokenize that particular thing with their loyalty by the thing that is happening on the web page, it's like you already have their attention for a lifetime. Everyone who is an Apple user or an Apple uh, consumer, like an Apple product owner, they love Apple website. Why? Because it's like very distinctively intentionally made for the buyers and the viewers that are on the like web page. Something that was when I saw, if you see Aryan, right, something that because we because in IQ it's very flamboyant that we say we are going to do a documentary style. Now the most difficult part of making a textual documentary is the experience, is the visual experience, something that uh, Jonah and Volume is trying to do. So
That's like an experimental beta shit.
Yeah.
But Aryan, what you saw again, those also not up to the mark of what we want to aspire. But that we kept in the app because initially we were like, let's not remove, let's just see. And we got, like, when we removed it, a lot of people messaged us saying, why did you remove that section and all that? Because I loved that section. It was very different from any other content apps and all that. But like, I'll tell you something in terms of distribution, I'll tell you some real things which I've observed. When we launched Volume, we had almost 13K followers. The amount of people that actually went out and downloaded Volume was about 800 to 900 people, which is about 8%, less than 8, like almost 8% or less than 8% conversion, which if you look at industry standards, social media conversion is seen at 2 to 3%. Yeah, 2 to 3% is this thing. But again, like when you go smaller, even those things inflate because, when you're smaller and smaller, the more loyal you have. As you get bigger and bigger, your percentage of loyal users are also lesser and lesser. And Instagram does this thing where if you are not interacting with that page a lot by liking, bookmarking, or commenting, your page being shown to them starts coming in a lower and lower priority. So often what happens is, if you have 10K followers, only 4 to 5% of them will actually constantly get your content. So maybe some of your content might come to them only next day. It's not coming like how Substack or Twitter delivers your content. It just algorithmically, it picks out who you interact with most and gives it to them. So again, like 800 people, and in that 800 people also, many downloaded because they were curious. Okay. And in that also, a big chunk of them churned out. But one thing which I'll notice is the people who have the highest retention rate, like even today, if I check users who have stayed from our September launch, there are still users who have used the app so far, like all these months, and they're still active users. It's a very tiny crowd. This will be something 400, 300, or even lesser than that. Okay. But these people have stayed for so long. They have known the brand from their Instagram pre-app days. But the fact that the social media crowd, right, I felt personally was not a very loyal this. I felt if instead of Instagram, if I had focused on Twitter, probably, maybe I would have got a more higher quality audience. Definitely for launch and getting yourself on top of, we came on top 5 apps in magazines and news when we launched. We were above Maxter, Zenio, we were above Vogue India and all that when we launched. Because of our Instagram crowd, that's what distribution got us, visibility in App Store. Yeah, and App Store visibility gave us organic downloads.
Instagram is basically for branding. So when we approached Instagram, Instagram was the last platform we wanted to go. Like it was Twitter, YouTube mainly, and then Instagram. If we ever go to
I don't think Instagram,
but it was
like,
very easy
Instagram
for us
is a
to go to
dumpster for anything.
For us, it was very easy to go to Instagram because the same thing which we were creating for text, we could just create carousels for it. So it just came naturally to us. And I think that was basically for branding only. And even now, if you're creating reels for Instagram, it's mainly for branding. And people should know what our purpose is, and we slowly induce it. But other than that, it's very difficult to get conversions. Like we tried getting conversions on a newsletter, and it was like 4 or 5 people converted out of 40,000 views on one reel.
I think it's the concept of tokenization that we have been like, addressing for a really long time. What do you have in for them? Like they just got something out of that 30-second video. What else? What's that one thing that you can offer? Something that everyone is trying to do, that tips and tricks and hacks and all that. But
See, the thing is, if you're going for a freemium model, if any founder is creating a freemium based model, if you're going for a paid model, you don't have to go for acquiring a lot of people. You just need to acquire that few high intent people. That's enough. But if you're going for a freemium model, you need to find a way to create a tap that is flowing as fast as possible inside. You will be churning a lot initially, but figuring out the tap is so hard, especially because you want to scale to, because 1 million is also not a big number in India. Like something like InShots has 25 million people. Okay, and everyone and all news readers don't even use InShots.
So what's your tap like? Where do your users come from? Apple, iOS.
So one is Apple and App Store and stuff. Then from social media also people come, like, every time we get active on our stories and all these kind of stuff, right? We see a sudden jump of people from. So I'll tell you, social media's biggest benefit is you can keep them in retention loops, because newsletters and giving people through emails to bring them back, right? Only a very tiny, because first you'll go into the promotion box. Even if you say this new feature has come in volume, this is picks for you, all this is going to promo. Very hard to bring them back. But on Instagram, they'll keep remembering. So when something new is introduced on your product and stuff, right, they'll come to your app to at least see what it is. Maybe in the third or fourth time where they actually return is where they might actually start becoming users, or maybe by then their friends also might be there on the platform for them to
right.
We don't have suggested friends from contacts and stuff, but maybe by the third or fourth visit they'll see some of their friends also on volume. Okay, so their intent starts increasing. Okay, and they can probably see what their friends are reading, those kind of things. But figuring out a tap which is not growing at, like right now we are growing at like 300-400 organic downloads a day. Okay, but that is also not good enough if you want to become, like in the next 12 months, if you want to reach 250k users or 300 users. This is assuming 300k users are like 250k users after users have churned out also. This is the users who are sticking, your monthly active users. To grow to that part, you need to somehow figure out a looping channel. Reels is probably an amazing way to do it, we think, because maybe the conversion rates might be lower initially, but when people see you again and again and again, right? Because the fact that you're getting so much of reach, the magic about reach is it doesn't work in 1 or 2 days. It doesn't work probably even in a month. But as that same thing comes again and again with that, right now, your CTS says follow Aryan Kochar and Finflow for more, right? The name, those two names are always going to resonate in the minds of people. At some point, somebody will be like, who is Aryan? Okay. Now, our reels always end with, so our reels are all focused on curiosity. They start with a hook that is a very question, like which starts with a why or a how or a philosophical.
You started doing reels?
Yeah, it's coming out on Monday.
Yeah.
So it starts with a why or a how, and our CTA ends with, for more such content to quench your curiosity, download the volume app. So if they like this reel, then we are telling them there is a reservoir for you, and this is just a sample from the reservoir.
Right.
Kind of like how Netflix gives you small glimpses of things to make you curious about what's there in that show. Right. These are memes from shows which you haven't seen, but others are sitting and talking. There's social proof behind that show. And it ultimately gets you curious on what is there over there. Right. I mean, I think look at Finflow's growth. I think last week when I checked, you guys were somewhere at 5,500 or something. Right.
So we were around 2,400 something, and then,
that is around before 1.5-2 months. You were at 2,400 or something.
Even 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we were like
that is crazy growth. Now that means people are seeing your reel. They're going and they're actually doing an action also. But the fact that now
can we retain them? Like, are we able to retain them?
The thing with retention is consistency. Now, when we used to create, right, we didn't have a lot of, the thing with carousels and posts and all, pick images, that level of things, you can't retain them for long because the nature of it, you pop up once in a while. But the thing with the reels format is, even if your user hasn't seen some of your old reels, one day when they're going through the algorithm itself, they'll see probably your old reels also. The fact that your older content is also getting reused more and more. I mean, on volume, one of the reasons why most creators grow is, Aryan, your first post about Lenskart still gets likes.
Yeah.
Right. And that is what's happening with the reels algorithm. The fact that time is not a very important factor. Definitely, they're not suggesting stuff from 8 months ago, but at the same time, they're giving priority to stuff that has been posted in the past 1-2 months and still rotating it in the algorithm. So
the fact that you can reach almost 1 million with 2,000 followers is crazy.
It's crazy. So maybe reels could be that tap. Maybe Twitter could be a tap. At the end of the day, you need to notice that quality of audience is as important as creating a high flowing tap. Because sometimes, I've seen people talking about it's not the number of people, it's, it's just the quality of audience. That works for very high intent stuff.
Quality and number, like the constant flow of both.
Yeah, because a content company at the end of the day is judged by its DAU, MAU. You may not want that. Like, as a founder, you will be like, I don't care about DAU and MAU. I care about people who really care about my app and,
and
care
pay
about
pay
for it and all that as a founder. But at the end of the day, people will be like, what's your DAU? And if like a very tiny amount is your DAU, MAU and all those things, investors going to just say no.
It's more of a ratio thing, don't you think? Like
if you think about a ratio, right? If you divide your DAU by MAU, for example, if you divide your WAU by MAU, weekly by monthly, and if it's reaching 50%, means 50% of the users in that month come every week.
Yeah.
Right. So that ratio is important. Wow by Mao, DAO by Wow.
Yeah,
the investors ask all this. What's your DAO by Wow?
I am a person who's very like affluent with vocabulary, but when it comes to like building stuff, I'm more like a child with a crayon. I would prefer more because that's a warrior than a person with a keyboard and something. But anyways,
let's go to the last part.
Like the conclusive statement would be any content is a relic of relevance that is like gone by right now. So if you're relevant right now, that's the only thing, that's the only currency that you hold, nothing else. You're not a longevity guru right now. That's how you should see it, because as
that's
a content
why consistency
company,
works.
Yep.
As me right now forging and building a content company, there are so many factors on the accordance of relevance that if I lose that shine, there's no point building this kind of business, right? Anyways, on that note, we are on the segment where we love it the most. I don't know why we are doing this as a segment. So this segment is where
कौन सी books तुमने पढ़ी है अभी last month, last week, and which ones do you recommend?
So I'll go first, as always. We won. There are like, just because we have talked about this, I am a person who reads like 4 or 5 books at once, but I'll only recommend 2, which is like primarily mere haath abhi usi pe ja rahe. Even though there are like 4 or 5, which includes Richard Branson's Losing My Virginity as well. But the one of the book is from Adam Grant, and it's called The Originals, if you can see. Yeah, it's blur, but okay, you see it in frames.
This is what happens when you do fake blur.
Yeah, I'm trying to like check the camera.
You'll get next month. You'll get update to venture up.
Yeah, and how did you connected your like phone? Is it like you bought a stand or what?
My phone is my big monitor is there. It's standing on that.
Okay, and it's like latched onto it. Oh, okay.
So the thing is, when you go on portrait mode, it uses some AI and stuff and does some wide angle stuff to give it this wide angle. If I go on my portrait mode, which I won't show you now.
I want to see the desk view, yeah.
So I tried desk view. It's not rendering it properly. If I put desk view right now, no, my legs will show. Like, though there is so much of gap, it starts showing my leg. I feel if it's little more up, but still, it doesn't show anything in the desk. It starts showing my lap.
So, this experiment is for next time. I will be on Ventura soon, and then I'll do this shit. But till then, one of the books is Adam Grant's Originals. So I was in a block, in a rut, like I was in a rut like very, very recently. And there was this one question key, there's no originality, because I stick by the fact that that there's nothing original and stuff. So I wanted to get new perspectives, because I was very much loaded with that same refueling of the perspectives that I have, like meaningless bullshit, something like that. So I needed a new perspective, and that's why I like picked up this book Original, and it is one of those mind-blowing uh, books that can actually help you in your leadership thinking and stuff, thought leadership and all, because it's very fluently talking about a concept. I bookmarked it, and it talks about a concept called uh, kleptom kleptomnesia kleptomnesia, right? It's a concept which accidentally remembering the ideas of others as our own, which is practiced by 99% of humans.
I remember somewhere reading, I don't know if it's in Jobs is this thing, but somewhere where Jobs, had taken someone else's idea, but,
And
but
credited
when
it
he
as its
rephrased
mine.
it, yeah, he
Yeah.
credited as his own.
So this is the book where it clearly says like a great idea is a great start, but it's what you do next that count, and that is this book all about. And it's one of the phenomenal books about being original. How you can't be original. That's like mentioned in it. Nothing is original right now, because we all have those
What's the
rented
name again?
originals. It's called Originals by Adam Grant.
Adam.
And one of the books that I am currently reading, which I am very interactive with on Twitter, the author, I'm very interactive with the author. The author's name is Ken Kocienda. Kocienda, that is how it's pronounced. I don't know if it's right. It's called Creative Selection. If you can see, like in glimpses,
Creative
Wow,
selection
nice
inside
cover.
Apple's design
Right?
process during the golden age of stages. Nice.
Yeah, right. So this is one of those books where the design thinking wala idea was incepted, and the heuristics concept of how design also follows an algorithm, but is very, very much layered into it. This is one of those books that is helping me understand the how, the why, the when, the what, and the where of the click wheel on the iPod, the home button on the iPhone. The intentional stuff, the thing that I'm very rigid and adamant with my IQ. Aryan always fights with me ki you have to be a little bit flexible, be like this, be like that, and that is where I'm very much focused. Ki, dude, I would rather work on serving 100 people who would be loyal 100 people to pay me, rather than I go by creating an audience of 1 lakh people and only 100 people convert out of it. Because it's all about the energy that you're using, right? As I mentioned, like everything will be handcrafted. So that handcraft uh, product needs to be valued in that. It's more, see, it's more of the luxury car wala thing. Why do you think Rolls Royce has that kind of respect and not a Maruti? Rolls Royce doesn't have anything in their like factory, right? It's like everything is order based. Everything is very intentional with what you need, like a consumer thing, right? So that is what I'm approaching, and this book has given me that like creative selection. It says the design processes has to be uh, an intentional effort, or else it's not design. It's a simple plain sketch canvas board. So yeah, these are the two recommendations for until the next episode. So yeah, that's for
Next
me.
week we're gonna be
Next
regular.
week. Yeah.
Jonah,
what do you have?
Awesome. So okay, I'll tell you about two books. This other
Don't
one,
give Atomic Habits, please.
gee, dude, I haven't even read that.
but you
dude,
did a
oh my God.
Acha, who writes that? मेरे को बताओ.
Huh?
The summarized on volume.
Dude, that AI does it for us.
Secrets
So
spilling.
we have some employed AIs. So we use like 2-3 AI tools. Then we read through it. Then we go through
It's called
actual.
Dali is doing this stuff.
No,
Dali
that's
too.
no. But yeah, then we check it out with the actual book, whether it's actually, correlating with the core essence of the book. So there'll be other people also who would have summarized. Best is Blinkist. I just open my Blinkist and go through the summaries to see how accurate it is. In most cases, it is accurate, right? So then you have to make these small nuance corrections. But yeah, at the end of the day, That's how we get the summaries. Atomic Habit, we put it because it's a popular book.
Yeah,
It's
I
so
just gave you a
popular,
warning.
overrated.
Don't
What is
expect
it?
that.
What is it?
Don't expect that. So one is this, Aryan, I think I'd recommend it to you, visionary thinking. So
wow, look at the design.
okay,
Hmm.
so this book mainly takes a lot of ideas from Buddhism, Hinduism, and all that to bring the concept of what a visionary is. So it goes. So this book, I haven't read it formally. I've just gone to different parts and consumed different parts of it rather than reading the whole thing in a go. So this is basically talking about why they see the world differently and what are the common narratives that these creatives built. The sense of a rebellion against the world. Those kind of tiny narratives which are so common among all visionary thinkers, and how their experiences in life have crafted that visionary thinking. So it's mainly on that focus. So he compares it as like a visionary is probably like a yogi who sees a particular kind of light which probably others cannot see, and like he goes into details of visionaries through different religious concepts. So that's this book mainly about. Pretty awesome book. So there's another book by the same author. I can't find it, but I haven't finished reading that. Second is this I bought a few months back, but then I started rereading. This is Michio Kaku's The Future of Humanity. So this is mainly about what is humanity tending towards, some of the core technologies that have to come into existence in the future. So this starts off with something very grounded to the earth with solar and all that, the potential of how much of, so like he goes down into breaking the maths of how much money we would probably need to put in to make the earth completely on Kardashev scale 1. So Kardashev scale 1 means we reach a point where the earth becomes completely self-sustainable and can use all the energy of the sun, right? So what effort, because right now we are at 0.7 Kardashev scale and all. So he puts forward those examples, and then he goes into human existence and stuff on why humanity needs to move to Mars.
How do you spell this card? How do you spell it?
Michio Kaku, Michio. Oh, Michio Kaku is a brilliant guy. He's a physicist.
Yeah, I can sense with the
you'll see his video on YouTube in Think Big and Big Think, I think Big, I don't know, but like about his God a mathematician and all this crazy stuff. He's the founder of the string field theory. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, nice.
Yeah. So co-founder, because two people actually found it. So then he talks about life beyond Earth, what it would look like. Then he goes on to explaining possibilities of if we were ever to go intergalactic or like inter solar system. We often have in sci-fi we often have this impression that humanity will look exactly like humanity even when we travel, like because Star Wars, Star Trek and all has given that impression to us. What if we are not humans? What if we are just programs? Just think about it, right? With the biological form, you can, no matter how much modifications you do on it, you cannot become an intergalactic civilization. It's just impossible. I mean, I'm not saying this happening anywhere in the next 1000 2000 years, but as worse and worse disasters will eventually come, if humanity was ever to go past that, the Great Barrier, right? Like every extinction event we avoid is basically going past one by one every Great Barrier, right? So he talks about what could humanity ultimately look like if they were interplanetary. Just think, if humanity was a program, at the end of the day, your consciousness intact, your persona is intact, but at the same time, you could travel into places because you could distort your own perception of time, right? Biological traveling means you need to, put yourself into places to actually, make sure you always exist. And the fact that your entire consciousness could be in a few chip, in a very tiny chip, those kind of possibilities of what would humanity even look like compared to, what is actually there in sci-fi. Then he talks about stuff like de-aging technologies and stuff. I'm not pretty much fan of that, but pretty interesting in terms of like these chemical compounds like Ptolemies and all these things. For example, if you fast for a few days, like someone who fasts after every 2-3 days will probably biologically, though it's not a big change, you'll probably see your aging has comparatively been much lesser compared to someone who's eating thrice a day. Because when you eat thrice a day, your body is, going through its cycle of, getting its next layer on again and again. So the cycles are going much faster compared to someone who's fasting. So pretty
Right.
interesting book. Like, I like the sci-fi, not sci-fi, but like core science realm.
This is very interesting.
There's one thing, your screen is stuck, like your camera is
Yeah.
stuck.
Oh, awesome.
Something happened with your phone. Your phone died.
No way,
Yes.
dude. Wait. Awesome, dude. So I think we have to start. So wait.
Aryan, editing.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the angle where, like, this is the
The real.
Hey, by the way, there's
It's
this thing
back.
called there's this thing called stage center. So it'll lose a bit of clarity because I'm on the portrait mode. But just look
Okay.
at this. So
And now
if I
he'll
move
move.
here, yeah,
And the
this,
camera will
this is
move.
crazy stuff.
Yeah. See?
Yeah. I saw this.
Is
in
this
the
only
presentation.
in pro model, right?
Yeah, it needs to have wide
3
screen, I
cameras.
guess. Yeah, but see, the moment I go on this mode, I think it gets more clearer because wow.
Basically, Jonah is flexing.
I'm flexing, but it got stuck. No.
It got stuck again.
Again.
Nice one. Anyway, wait.
कितने बुक्स है तेरे पास सारे ये बता. ये तो
Aryan, yeah,
कैमरा टिकट है.
yeah. One sec. One sec.
अभी तो अभी अराउंड 16 बुक्स के आसपास चल रही है साथ में. बट जो यार बीच में ना क्या हुआ कि थोड़ा सा इन सब चीजों से ध्यान ही हट गया कुछ टाइम के लिए. I had to focus,
Because you became a creator.
नहीं क्रिएचर नहीं उसके लिए तो उसके लिए भी पढ़ता हूँ. मतलब दैट इज
अच्छा,
माय
okay,
रिवर्स
yeah.
लूप कि आई रीड बिकॉज आई हैव टू क्रिएट वाला सीन भी है. लाइक
ये ऐसा ट्रिगर मेरे अंदर कभी नहीं है. Like I'll be the one who will be like, अच्छा ये पढ़ा तो चलो देते हैं.
that actually makes the writing much better and my understanding much better.
कि तू intentionally ट्रिगर ला
तू
रहा
देख
है.
ना तू देख मैं जो भी चीज बिल्ड कर रहा हूँ, जैसे अगर मैंने नोशन का थ्रेड पढ़ा था, उसका एक इंटेंट था कि मैं क्रिएट करना चाहता था, लेकिन अब दोज डिजाइन प्रिंसिपल्स आर इन मी. तो हाँ, तो मैं उसकी वजह से मैं एक रिवर्स सीखता रहता हूँ. तो दैट्स अ but I'll talk about a book which I'm reading. Don't shut up. One, it's actually
my boy Prakhar.
तो very like I've just read one chapter, but मैंने थोड़ा सा skim किया है. तो अभी आई है.
Watching this,
yeah,
endorse please.
yes.
Guy need my book. What the hell? He promised. मेरे हर दिन मेल में आ रहा है कि it will reach your.
मत भेजना इसको, मेरे को jealous करने में मजा आ रहा है. तो
It is a signed copy.
हाँ, it's a signed copy.
दिखा कैमरे पे दिखा. We need to have like a evidential proof.
Yeah.
ये तो you signed it. This is the you signed it.
So मैं बताता हूँ कि this is a very different kind of book. So if anybody has seen Prakhar's content, मैं वो controversy वगैरह की बात कर रहा हूँ, but if you watch Prakhar's content, it actually goes into very simple things and solves it in a very what I like to call in a very complicated way. But that complication is necessary. So that complication actually brings nuance and it solves the problem in a very different way. So this has this content page is actually a set of problems. Basically part 1 is studenthood to adulthood, which we went to school together. So how to make friends in college hai wo. Yeah, next day how to ask someone out, how to talk about what to talk about on a first date, how to have fun at parties. These simple things, but the answers to these questions are very ingrained in psychology. Because वो psychology student है और उसने खुद जो भी अपनी बनाई है चीजें. And even the grown up zone, which is basically written by Mudit, his co-author, it is also it is in a very different sense. वो उसका एक अपना स्टाइल है, वो एक कॉर्पोरेट वाला कोच है, and उसके भी एक काफी different kind of nuance आ रही है उसमें. So I really like that concept कि you solve simple life problems with such good solutions which actually tweak psychology, जिसको आप समझ सकते हो दूसरी की psychology क्या है, and उसके हिसाब से अपना behavior को tweak कर सकते हो. So that is something I really liked. And although I would say first 2-3 things in the book don't really apply to me, because like how to make friends in college, I don't want to, I don't need to, but अब हो गया वो phase. लेकिन एक ना still you should, if even if it's not relevant to you ना, like even if it's not solving your problem, still if you give it a read, आपको बहुत सारी चीजें सीखने को मिलेगी. So in the first part it actually talks about कि human की core motivation ही क्या है बात करने की. वो उसमें बहुत ही डीप चला जाएगा. तो स्टार्टअप फाउंडर्स को तो वो चाहिए ही चीज है. एंड काफी डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ इनसाइट्स जो मैंने कभी आज तक सोची नहीं थी या सुनी नहीं थी या समझी नहीं थी, वो अप्लाई हो रही है. तो आई वुड रिकमेंड दिस. एंड इसके अलावा किंडल है नहीं मेरे पास अभी, बट कौन सी बुक पढ़ रहा था मैं, I've actually forgotten. मैं तुम दोनों को बोल दिया I didn't bring my Kindle here. But मैं एक सेकंड अपने मोबाइल ऐप से चेक करता हूँ.
Is it a self-help book या starting से do little? What are the genres that you're reading specifically right now?
कुछ काइंड ऑफ सेल्फ हेल्प है, मतलब बिल्कुल वैसे टाइप का नहीं, बट हाँ
I'm reading very entrepreneurial kind of shit because I need to know the perspective.
हाँ, I'm reading your recommendation, Thou Shalt Innovate, which is on Israel, and I'm not going to expose anything because I'm writing a thread on Israel, तो मैं इसलिए ही पढ़ रहा हूँ उसको. It's a very detailed and very different kind of thread on Israel. उसके अलावा in the Amazon sale I bought 3-4 books. It was business storytelling चलिए तो unlimited के साथ आया था. It is good, थोड़ी सी नॉर्मल लग रही है, but Principles by Ray Dalio is something I wanted to buy for a very long time. And very
I think it's out of relevance. You came out in late, तो अब तेरे को मजा आएगा उसके concept समझने में, but it is like the ship has sailed.
But मेरे को उसके जो वो है ना बैक ट्रैकिंग आ रही है, वो अच्छा लग रहा है उसमें. Then Hard Things About Hard Things, ये भी
Ben Horowitz.
हाँ, Ben Horowitz. It is good.
I haven't can you imagine I opened the first page and I close it. पता नहीं क्यों, like why like it happens automatically. I've never read that book.
It's interesting. It's
just
Jonah, have you read it?
Sell me the idea, Aryan. Let's see. I'll put your entrepreneurial
पता मैं ना मैं इसको समझा नहीं पाऊंगा. It is so difficult to explain this book. You'll actually.
Einstein has said, if you haven't understood something well, you can't explain it in simple words.
Einstein also said, if you've understood something well, don't give it off to everybody
for free.
This is Einstein talking to Newton.
अच्छा, तो वही है. It is about, and it is very entrepreneurial. तो अगर देखो वैसी entrepreneur की self help book चाहिए, मतलब एक इंसान के लिए कैसी गाइड है. It is basically about कि like true to its title कि hard, like चीजें hard है तो उनको आप soft solution से solve नहीं कर सकते. Like this is hard. तो and उसमें कैसे जीना है, कैसे क्या क्या करना है. So it is what it is doing to me, like whenever I am having a hard time at my startup, मैं वो चीजों को सोचता हूँ, because unless you connect with those things ना, it like just wears off that grit आपका जाते रहता. After a point मेरा तो होता ही है, मेरे को कभी कभी ना ऐसा होता है कि like why am I doing this, तो उसमें वो help कर रहा है. एक है Art of Thinking Clearly. This is clearly for making threads. This has some concepts जिसपे साहिल ब्लूम ने threads लिखे हुए हैं वगैरह वगैरह. तो I really wanted to read कि पढ़ता क्या है before writing threads. So like yeah, good book for threads if you मतलब it is normal stuff कि कैसे सोचते हैं, क्या mental errors है वगैरह वगैरह. Like I won't recommend it. तो
अरे there was this one, I'll cut you through. मेरे को एक बुक याद आ गई, मेरे पास है नहीं अभी, it is in my Kindle. तो मैं ना ऐसे genres ढूंढ रहा था जहाँ पे like they talk about unorthodox stuff. Like they say कि like entrepreneurship you don't have to scale, whatever you're doing is great as well. You know, like there's a contrary thought in every topic. So I was trying to find that book, and one of the books that I found was Anything You Want by Derek Sivers. So Anything You Want is a book written by Derek Sivers, and Derek Sivers is a entrepreneur. He's a businessman. Now I think he's into VCs and stuff. So he wrote this book explaining how he created his first successful, profitable business by not doing all those conventional things that has been sold in today's time. Scaling the product, getting on investors, working on the consumer experience, like the customer side and stuff.
नाम क्या है?
Anything You Want by Derek Sivers. So I remember this book why, because unorthodox cheeses chalti hai, and I think most of the entrepreneurs that focus on being profitable than being scalable and stuff, that is also being a balance. Like हम एक side की बात करते हैं और दूसरे side की बात कभी नहीं करते. So I think this is one of those recommendations that I would give.
ये वाली चीज फिर इंडियंस को जरूरत नहीं, ट्विटर पे चले जाओ. इतना ज्यादा ऑलरेडी आप होते हैं प्रॉफिटेबल. बट एक और लास्ट बुक है द डिफाइनिंग डिकेड, मैंने विवान को भी बताई थी.
This is my podcast. If you go in my podcast RDF, Reality Distortion Field, I recommended this a long time ago.
Yeah, it is nice. मेरे को like when you understand कि like besides being a startup founder, you are a young kid right now, and you need guidance and you need stuff. So this actually helps you. The defining decade. अच्छी है. Yeah.
And on that note, a lot of recommendations.
There's no more thing now. Okay.
I think we just crossed the level of Lex Fridman's conversation level by the timing aspect. I
started like 7:40 or something, right? 7:45.
Yeah, 7 to 11.
What's an average OMT episode size?
2 hours.
After editing, like, will it become 2 hours or like this?
It won't be go 3. This will be very candid. This is how we're going to keep.
Yeah.
And on that very pinpoint note, it was
like, subscribe and share.
अभी ये तो Jonah बोलेगा, हम तो बस we have a sponsor again. Just don't forget, guys.
Yeah.
It will be in the description. And yeah, we had a great guest. I think I want to do these kind of sessions because मैंने आर्यन को बहुत specifically कहा था कि dude, I want to talk about startups and just design startup stuff, particularly on one episode. And I think this is how it's been served. It was great, Jonah, that you joined our conversation. It happened like popped up like that, right? Like I said, Jonah, would you want to join? You said yes. I said okay, let's do it.
Must.
Yep.
If like someday we can do a real scene.
Yeah, like we need that kind of setup जहाँ पे हम बैठ के तीन like
me and Vivana are in the same place. Aryan, like you're the only one missing from a real conversation.
You just need to get on one plane.
Yeah.
You be here, everything is regarding like like it's slow and calm and everything, just the way you like it, Aryan.
Perfect.
We'll have walks and we'll have talks. And on that note, Jonah, like promote our channel. That's like how.
Yep,
how
guys, hit the subscribe button and like and share if you loved it. Even if you don't, even if you couldn't sit till the end, like and share.
But yeah, we do care. We do care, guys.
Give feedbacks in the comments.
Yeah. And on that note, it's been a great conversation. 3 startup guys talk about a lot of stuff. Yeah. And yeah, we'll catch everyone up on the next episode. Until then,
bye.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Peace out. Bye bye.